Chapter 2652. Sure, are you all right? Qianzhou immediately walked up to her and held her arm. His heart ached when he saw her helpless expression. He did not know much about her past. However, after interacting with her for so long, he deeply believed in her character. Even if she was pregnant before marriage, she probably had some unspeakable reasons, right? Everyone was caught off guard by this sudden sentence, and the scene went completely out of control. Everyone buzzed in discussion. What? Xianxia is pregnant before marriage? She already has 2 children? How is that possible? She doesn't look like it. That's right. Usually, women who have given birth will look more haggard than women of the same age. However, her image in front of the screen has always been pure and charming, just like a young girl. She doesn't look like someone who has given birth before. She probably took good care of herself. I guess so. When the reporter saw that she did not answer, he continued to press on. Miss Xianxia, is this question difficult to answer? Then let me investigate further. The reason why you were pregnant before marriage was because there was something else, right? You signed $1 million agreement with the Mu Corporation and agreed to give birth to a child for the Mu Corporation through artificial insemination. At that time, it was widely rumored that the fiancé of the Mu Corporation's crown prince, Wuxia, was infertile. The Mu family was eager to have a child, so they chose you to be the surrogate mother of the Mu family. May I ask, is this all true? Ji Lin immediately stood up and said coldly, this topic has nothing to do with the theme of tonight's press conference, right? The most important thing for an artist is to have a good public image. I believe that many of the audience are very concerned about the character of their favorite artist. If their beloved idol is a completely different person in private, it will definitely disappoint the majority of fans, right? The reporter paused for a moment before continuing. However, there may be some unspeakable reasons behind your decision to be a surrogate for the Mu family. But when you gave birth to a pair of twins for the Mu family, you secretly took one of the children for yourself. There are also rumors that you did this in hopes of secretly raising the child so that you can climb up the social ladder of the Mu family in the future and climb up the social ladder. You completely disregarded the fact that Wuxia has a legitimate fiancé. Does such a move count as a third party interfering in the relationship? No. Xianxia immediately refuted. I'm not a third party. What a dignified response. The reporter sneered and pressed on. But what about the truth? You did take the place of Wuxia's fiancé, Mu Wanru. You secretly had an affair with the CEO of the Mu Group and successfully became Wuxia's wife. However, the Mu family doesn't approve of your status. Enough. Xianxia gritted her teeth and stopped the reporter with tears in her eyes. The reporter who asked this question was aggressive. He was bent on destroying her. Destroying her. Xianxia suddenly realized something and turned her head to look at Ji Yan. She saw that Ji Yan was also looking at her. The corners of her lips were curled up a little coldly, but there was a smug look in her eyes. It's her. Could this reporter have been sent by her and hidden in the crowd? Xianxia gritted her teeth in hatred. Ji Yan. It's her? Chapter 2653. Miss Xianxia, please don't evade my question, okay? The reporter was still pressing on, not giving her any way out. Please answer my question directly. Xianxia lowered her head and kept quiet for a long time. Suddenly, a cold smile formed on her face and she looked up expressionlessly. Her face was no longer as helpless as before. Instead, it was calm and fearless. What other question do I need to answer? Haven't you already answered this question very well? Xianxia said coldly, I did get pregnant out of wedlock. When I was 18, I did give birth to a pair of sons for the Muse. If this is the answer you want, then I can answer you seriously and directly as you said. A glint flashed across the reporter's eyes. So you admit it? Yes. However, I don't have any filthy thoughts of a mother's status because of her son. Xianxia wanted to explain that she had kept Yu by her side back then due to a freak combination of factors. When Yu was born, he stopped breathing. The Muse only sent people to take Mu Yichen away. They mistakenly thought that Yu had lost his vital signs, so they left him in the cold delivery room. Later, the nurse accidentally discovered that he was still breathing and immediately carried him to the emergency room. Only then did he survive. However, the reporter below did not give her any room to explain. As soon as she said that, The whole venue was in chaos. They only took it as Xianxia admitting to all the questions raised by the reporter, so they took it for granted that she had indeed intervened in the relationship between Wuxia and Mu Wanru. Xianxia, does this mean that you have indeed intervened in the relationship between Wuxia and Mu Wanru? Are you a third party? Xianxia, since you have a history of being a third party, are you also a third party with Gao Nan and Ji Yan this time? Xianxia, please answer my question directly. Don't you feel guilty for doing this? Xianxia, it's shameful to be a third party. How do you think you'll explain this to your fans? All the sharp and ear-piercing questions swept towards her like a violent storm. All the reporters rushed to the front of the stage, looking like they were going to skin her alive. Seeing that the situation was out of control, Jianghu immediately walked up and held Xianxia's shoulders. He lowered his voice and whispered in her ear, "The situation is out of control. We can't stay here any longer. Let's go." Jianghu. What's the matter? Let's talk later. As he spoke, Jianghu hugged her without any explanation. His expression was hurried as he tried to break through the encirclement and wait for her to leave the scene. However, how could the reporters at the scene be willing to give up? Seeing that she was about to leave, they immediately swarmed over and surrounded her. Countless microphones with logos were put in front of her face, while countless reporters pulled her sleeves and even her arms. Xianxia felt someone pulling her hair and reached out to push the reporter away. Angered by the shove, the reporter shouted, "Xianxia, don't get physical with him. Show some respect." As soon as his words spread, everyone misunderstood him, thinking that Xianxia had hit someone. They immediately shouted angrily, "She's hitting someone! Xianxia has hit someone!" Chapter 2654. "I didn't hit anyone," Xianxia retorted angrily. However, her words were buried in the crowd. Hit someone. Were these unscrupulous reporters eager to accuse her of a groundless crime again? Her ears were filled with irritable voices as the reporters squeezed her savagely. Seeing that she was about to leave the venue, some of them even acted as human shields and guarded the door tightly, not allowing her to leave. Xianxia was being squeezed here and there, and her face was instantly filled with anger. She looked up and looked at the ferocious and distorted faces around her, but her heart gradually turned cold. "Xianxia, don't you intend to give a satisfactory explanation? It's wrong to get involved in other people's relationships." Xianxia was so annoyed that she covered her ears with her hands and trembled with anger. She finally broke down and shouted loudly, "I didn't hurt anyone." A shrill scream pierced through the air above the venue. She screamed at the top of her lungs, "I didn't hurt anyone. So I beg you, don't hurt me. Don't slander me. Don't slander me. Don't destroy me." She had used up all her strength to say, "Don't," 4 times in a row. However, even so, it didn't stop the excessive enthusiasm of the reporters. "Xianxia. Xianxia." It was as if countless people were calling her name. She suddenly felt as if there were countless flies buzzing around her ears. It was irritating. "Enough!" she screamed hysterically. However, at the same time, the door of the venue was broken open by a barbaric force. The reporters guarding the door were caught off guard and were thrown to the ground by the sudden force. The door of the venue was flung open. A childish voice said angrily, "Whoever dares to touch a hair on my mommy, I'll definitely teach them a lesson." It was a childish voice, and one could tell that it was a very young child. However, the beautiful voice contained such an astonishing aura that it caused the entire venue to quiet down. Someone seemed to have pressed the mute button. The air froze in an instant. Everyone couldn't help but look at the door. When Xianxia heard this familiar voice, she looked at the door in shock. However, when she saw Mu Yichen's figure at the door, her eyes instantly widened. Immediately after, all the reporters present were dumbfounded, especially when they saw a tall figure strolling toward them. When Mu Yaja appeared at the entrance of the venue, the resplendent hall seemed to lose its splendor in an instant. Everyone forgot to quarrel. It was as if time had stopped at this moment. The man's handsome face appeared in front of everyone's eyes. He was tall and handsome like a god descending from the heavens. He was holding the hand of a little boy in a suit. His black hair was soft and his eyes were clear. Little Munchkin's gaze swept across the crowd and finally landed on Xianxia. Instantly, his gaze became as gentle as the spring breeze. The man's eyes, from the moment he appeared, had never left her body. He looked at her quietly. That expression made it seem as if everything else in the world had lost its color, and she was the only one who had color. It's Wuxia. How could it be him? Why did he suddenly appear? This man is Wuxia? Is he really the rumored crown prince of the Mu group? Chapter 2655. That's right. You should know that he has never given any exclusive interviews. Only those who are good at finance would have such an opportunity. Mommy. A loud greeting attracted everyone's attention. Mommy? This child is called Xianxia's mommy? Ah, look, these two children look exactly the same. They're twins. I recognize this child. Isn't he the young master of Mu Corporation, Mu Chen? He's Wuxia's son. Didn't Wuxia leave Mu Corporation? There was a wave of whispers. Xianxia looked at Yu, then at Mu Chen. Finally, her confused gaze fell on Wuxia. She understood everything in an instant. No wonder Jianghu looked at her so meaningfully when he was talking about the details of the press conference. He said, Xianxia, don't worry. You only need to be in charge of the first half. Someone will take care of the second half for you. Xianxia, you're not alone. So, it was him. Was he the one who prepared for this press conference? Did he want to personally clarify those rumors and slanders? Xianxia's eyes reddened. Yu ignored the discussions of the reporters. He broke through the crowd and ran toward Xianxia. He stood in front of her and looked up at her. His warm face was full of heartache and guilt. Mommy, we're late. We've made you suffer. Xianxia's eyes reddened. She felt wronged, but she held it in. She squatted down and hugged Yu tightly in her arms. She could not hold back her hot tears. They fell on his shoulders and collar. Hot tears rolled down his face. Finally, at this moment, she could hold him in her arms in front of the whole world. She had really waited for this moment for too long. Yu. Mommy. Yu's voice choked up at once. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. He could finally hug his beloved mommy in front of so many people, in front of so many cameras, and in front of the entire nation's audience. Mu Chen also broke through the crowd and ran to her side. He hugged Xianxia and Yu tightly. Wuxia's eyes flickered slightly. Suddenly, his lips curled slightly as he slowly walked towards her. He rarely appeared in front of the camera, especially in public places like this. This was the first time in his life that he was doing a live broadcast to a national audience. However, it felt surprisingly good. The man's footsteps exuded a terrifying aura. Noble, arrogant, and not to be blasphemed, as if a god had descended. The reporters immediately timidly opened up a path, and no one dared to block him. Some of the bolder reporters carefully held their microphones and followed beside him. Their lips trembled for a long time, but in the end, they did not dare to say a word. They did not dare to. They did not have the courage to do so. Wuxia ignored all the strange and surprised looks. He slowly walked up to her and squatted down gently. He opened his palm to her and looked at her with a gentle gaze. I'm sorry, madam. I'm late. Madam. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This noble and extraordinary man actually called her madam. This was a direct acknowledgement of her status. Chapter 2656. Xiao Shui covered her mouth in excitement. She was so touched that she was at a loss for words. Ji Yan, who was standing behind him, did not expect him to appear so suddenly. She was also stunned. Xianxia was stunned for a long time. It was not until Yu and Mu Chen urged her in a low voice that she reached out her hand to him in a daze. Her hand was not even half the size of his palm. He took her hand and helped her up. Before Xianxia could stand firm or even react, Wuxia pulled her into his arms, put his other hand around the back of her neck, and kissed her without any warning. It was a kiss of the century. Xianxia's eyes widened, and her whole world went blank. Wuxia continued to kiss her with his eyes closed. Suddenly, he slowly opened his eyes and released her lips. Holding her in his arms, he turned around to face the crowd. Sweeping his gaze across the dumbfounded faces, he announced in a steady and powerful voice, "She's my wife and my wife. So, I will never allow anyone to violate her." His domineering declaration attracted countless flashing spotlights, and they could not wait to capture this amazing scene. Click, click, click. Some reporters could not react in time. They were so stunned that they even forgot to record the scene. She raised her head to look at him in astonishment and bewilderment. Amidst her startled gaze, he nodded at her and reached out his hand to tidy up her messy fringe due to the crowding. When countless microphones came around, he gently said, "I've been wanting to do this for a long time. To announce our relationship and marriage. Have you forgotten? I once promised you that I'll let everyone bear witness to my vow to you." Xianxia's body stiffened in an instant. Shoo, I'll arrange everything properly. Wuxia's eyes curved slightly. "Leave it to me, okay?" Xianxia stopped trying to be brave. She pursed her lips and nodded. Wuxia held her hand and walked towards the stage again. The moment Huanyu's higher-ups saw Wuxia arrive in person, they instantly became restless. They hurriedly wanted to give up their seats, appearing uneasy and flustered. Jilin looked at him with a complicated expression as he walked over with Xianxia in his arms. He gave Xianxia a strange look. "Is this also in the script of the press conference?" Xianxia smiled. "Of course. You know about this?" This press conference was arranged by Chairman Mu. Xianxia shrugged innocently. "He just didn't want me to be too ostentatious." "Isn't his appearance ostentatious enough?" The corner of Jilin's eyes twitched. "Then what exactly is considered ostentatious?" "Aya, old Ji, you don't understand." "Surprise. Don't you know what surprise is? No wonder you can't find a girlfriend. You're so inflexible that you can't find a wife," Xianxia said logically. Jilin resisted the urge to slap him and snorted coldly, but there was a gratified look in his eyes. "This is good." Jiyan watched as Wuxia walked to the front of the stage holding Xianxia's hand and sat down in the main seat. Xianxia obediently gave up his seat. Chapter 2657. Bad Woman. B***tch. After that, under Ji Yan's gnashing teeth, the two little lads snuggled up to Xianxia and no longer looked at her. Her face turned pale at once. "I've been planning this press conference for a long time." Wuxia looked up and said this intriguing sentence. "In fact, I've been looking forward to this day to announce our relationship, but she has repeatedly objected to it. I'm also very annoyed. My wife believes that she's an actress, and since she's an actress, the most important thing is to present excellent works to the audience. I've seen her efforts. She's a very talented actress and has sacrificed a lot for acting. Sometimes, because of work, I spend less time with her, so I'm quite opposed to her career. However, as a husband, I should support my wife's work. However, some time ago, I heard some bad rumors about my wife." Jiyan's face turned ghastly pale. Wuxia raised an eyebrow in a playful, contemptuous, and mocking manner. His eyes suddenly flashed with a cold sharpness. "Rumor has it that my wife is a third party who intervened in the relationship between Ms. Jiyan and Mr. Gao Nan. For the resources of a female lead, she openly seduced Mr. Gao Nan and achieved her goal." Pausing for a moment, he seemed to find it laughable as he scanned the scene with an insufferably arrogant gaze. His handsome face revealed his displeasure. "Mr. Gao? Yes. Does he deserve it? Mr. Gao Nan? Does he deserve it?" There was almost no excessive language. Although it was just a few words, they were hopelessly arrogant. However, no one had any doubts. Because he was qualified to say such arrogant words. He was the successor of the Mu Group. Although he had left the company, he was still famous and had single-handedly created the legend of Jianghu Financial Group. Such a man was so dazzling. Compared to him, a good-for-nothing second generation like Gao Nan was simply the biggest joke in the world. Besides, who was Wuxia? He was the behind-the-scenes boss of Huanyu. That was true in the past, and it is true now. Many people couldn't help but think about it. When he was in the Mu Group, he held the largest share of Huanyu. However, after leaving the Mu Group, he also lost all of Huanyu's shares. However, some time ago, there were rumors that he had purchased Huanyu at a high price and returned to his position as the head of the entertainment empire. Could it be? Because his wife was an artist under Huanyu, he bought Huanyu with a large sum of money. Did he just casually buy an entertainment group and then spend money to support his wife? Oh my God, so romantic. To be able to marry such an influential person, it really made people jealous. In this way, Ji Yan's accusations became a joke again. Xianxia seduced Gao Nan for resources? God, Her husband was the boss of Huanyu and had countless resources. Why did she have to suck up to other men? Did he lose his mind? The media should report the news as it is. Don't you think it's ridiculous that some ridiculous rumors are still spreading on the internet? Mu Yaja turned to look at his wife again, his eyes full of love. The audience watching the live stream was caught off guard and fed a mouthful of dog food. Oh my god. Chapter 2658. Yun Shirshir is Mu Yaja's wife? No one expected the situation to be reversed like this. Oh my god. This is amazing. This Yun Shirshir is so good at hiding her true colors. Everyone could not figure it out. Since she's married to such a powerful man, what's the point of acting? It's tiring, bitter, and thankless work. How happy would it be to just stay at home and take care of her husband and children? The camera then turned to Ji Yen. On the screen, she was drenched in cold sweat, her fists clenched tightly, and her shoulders trembled uncontrollably. No one knew whether it was out of anger, fear, uneasiness, or apprehension. Her face was as pale as a sheet of wax, which made her look ridiculous. In just a few minutes, she had been reduced from a righteous image to a clown's laughingstock. All the accusations were self-destructed. Any sensible person would be able to tell who was the one who was lying. Who was the one 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 who was creating rumors out of nothing. Seeing that the situation had gone out of control, the aggressive reporter from earlier gnashed his teeth in anger. He suddenly stood up and asked calmly, "Mr. Mu, could you please explain the truth about Miss Yun Shirshir being a surrogate for the Mu family 7 years ago? How would you explain this matter?" Mu Yaja smiled and said calmly, "This matter is not what the public has speculated. Shirshir and I were originally engaged. It was just an accident, a freak combination of factors, that led to a blunder. Fortunately, God allowed us to meet again, and I believe that she is my destined lover." Destined lover. She did indeed have 2 children as a surrogate for the Mu family. At that time, I learned that her adoptive father owed a huge debt due to the failure of his business. The family was desperate, and she had no choice but to make such a choice to relieve the pressure on her family. I don't think it's shameful at all. Everyone was enlightened. So that's what happened. It turned out that she had chosen to be a surrogate in order to pay off her adoptive father's debt. Indeed, it was not a shameful thing at all. This kind-hearted girl must have been willing to rent her body to repay her adoptive father for bringing her up. She used the surrogate pregnancy to get a handsome reward to solve the family's financial difficulties. She was a kind-hearted and filial girl. The reporter gritted his teeth and threw out an even sharper question. Then, if that's the case, how do you explain why she hid one of the children by her side? Chapter 2659. The reporters below the stage were suddenly enlightened. So that's how it was. Among the reporters present, there were quite a number of married ladies with children. They were quite emotional and couldn't help but sympathize with Yun Shirshir's past circumstances. Thinking about it carefully, if the same thing had happened to them, they might not have had such a spirit of dedication. It was indeed a shameful thing to do a surrogacy deal for the sake of her adoptive father's upbringing. But Yun Shirshir had done it without hesitation in order to repay his kindness. If it had been them, who would be willing? Moreover, after giving birth to a child, which mother would really be willing to hand over the child to someone else? That was her own flesh and blood. Blood was thicker than water, so it was only natural for her to have such selfish motives. Yun Shirshir put down the microphone. In one breath, she revealed the bloody past that she couldn't bear to recall in front of the public. Instead, she felt relieved. Some things were buried in the bottom of her heart, and that was a good thing. After saying it out loud, she felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off her shoulders. Mu Yaja held her hand tightly. His gaze was gentle as he said, "I'm really grateful to God for letting us meet again." Yun Shirshir also turned to look at him. The two of them looked at each other affectionately and smiled tacitly. Everyone was amazed and envious. Their gazes were very warm and tacit, especially in Mu Yaja's eyes. He couldn't hide the love that was about to burst out of his eyes. This was something that couldn't be expressed no matter how good his acting skills were. It was obvious how much he loved her. Yun Shirshir was so blessed. All of this could be considered as the end of the suffering and the beginning of the good times. "Mr. Mu, can you introduce the 2 children beside you?" Immediately, a reporter asked a question. Mu Yaja nodded cheerfully and said, "Of course." As he spoke, He pulled Yu Yu into his arms and handed the microphone to him. Yu Yu held the microphone and suddenly looked a little uneasy. It was the first time in his life that he was facing so many reporters. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't nervous. He muttered, I. What should I say? The reporters below the stage laughed at the child's naivety and amusement. On the other hand, Mui Chen consciously crawled to the seat next to Xianxia. It was the first time that the little guy had sat in front of so many people. He looked at the long stage with some curiosity, as well as the flashing spotlights under the stage. He looked a little confused, but his face was full of smiles and he looked very excited. He hugged the microphone and greeted with a smile. Good evening, uncles and aunties. My name is Mui Chen. I'm 7 years old this year. Another burst of laughter came from below the stage. Yu Yu answered bashfully, My name is Yun Tianyu. Mommy gave me this name. Mommy said, when I was born, my body was very weak and I was only saved by emergency treatment. The heavens took pity on me and protected me, so out of gratitude, they named me Yun Tianyu. However, my nickname is Yu Yu. So uncles and aunties can call me Yu Yu. Mui Chen was born 15 minutes earlier than me, so he's my brother. His surname is Yun? The audience was in a flurry of discussion. A reporter asked curiously, Yu Yu, little friend, do you have any intention of changing your surname? Do you want to share the same surname as your brother? Chapter 2660. Aren't you afraid that Daddy will be jealous? A female reporter found him very interesting and could not help teasing him. Daddy loves Mommy, so of course, he'll agree. Besides, no matter whose surname the child takes, it's the same. As he spoke, he tilted his head and glanced at Wuxia. Daddy, am I right? Wuxia raised an eyebrow but did not express any opinion. It was obvious that he had tacitly agreed. When Mui Chen heard this, he straightened his neck and said, I want to take Mommy's surname too. Wuxia. The man's face turned cold at once. What did you say? I want to take Mommy's surname too. Yuni-chan sounds so nice. The corner of Wuxia's eyes twitched fiercely. Don't mess around. The audience laughed again, but this time, it was a kind laughter. Everyone loved this pair of children very much. The atmosphere was no longer as tense as before. Instead, it became lively and no longer as stifling as before. Ji Yan's isolation and helplessness were further accentuated by the joyous atmosphere. She was at a loss as to what to do as she sat in her seat. She did not know whether to leave or just sit there. She felt extremely awkward, and as she looked at this harmonious scene, she felt even more upset. Unwillingness, annoyance, hatred, disgust. All kinds of negative emotions shrouded her. Ji Yan's face became irritated, especially when she saw that all the media's attention was focused on this family of 4. Wuxia's sudden announcement of his marriage had disrupted all her plans and caught her off guard. Where did Wuxia get such great ability from? She really could not figure it out. Didn't he leave the Mu group? When she looked in the direction of Wuxia and Xianxia, the light shone on them. The way he looked at Xianxia was especially gentle and affectionate. The two were whispering intimately at times and smiling tacitly at each other at times. The man was extraordinarily handsome, and the woman was beautiful. If there really were a fairy tale in this world, it would be no different from this scene. Ji Yan's face turned even paler, and her eyes darted around wildly. She wanted to withdraw, but she had no choice but to sit on the stage like a ridiculous clown and endure the mocking gazes cast at her from time to time. I've lost. I've lost to Xianxia again. She was really unwilling to accept this. Last time he had lost to her. Was he going to lose to her again this time? We've got our marriage certificate, and the wedding preparations are underway. The reporter asked, when do you plan to get married? Xianxia's face suddenly turned red, and she lowered her head shyly. Wuxia looked at her playfully, then turned to face the flashing spotlights with his dark eyes. The wedding date hasn't been set yet, but we're already preparing for it. Once the schedule is confirmed, we'll release the wedding date to the media. The media has been specially arranged for the wedding, and I hope that all of you will be invited to my and Xiaxia's wedding to witness our happiness. Mr. Mu, I wish you and Xiaxia happiness forever. I wish you both happiness. The reporters gave their heartfelt blessings. Through the live broadcast, many viewers were deeply moved by the happy couple on the screen. They were so happy. The most perfect happiness in the world was probably marrying love in the end. Chapter 2661. At the press conference, Ji Yan no longer had any room to speak. In the end, she could only leave in a sorry state, looking like a pitiful rat crossing the street under the countless cold stares of the reporters. On the rooftop, the neon lights were on. Xianxia leaned against the railing, occasionally reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Wuxia hugged her from behind and gently rested his chin on her neck. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. Xianxia chuckled softly, pursed her lips and said somewhat shyly, I just feel that everything that happened tonight is a little unreal." "Unreal?" "Yes." Xianxia lowered her eyes. From despair to hope, from hell to heaven, it all switched so quickly. "I feel like my heart can't keep up with the rhythm." "Despair?" Wuxia raised an eyebrow as if he did not understand her words. He turned her body around and forced her to face him. "Why would you feel despair? When you weren't here, those reporters were like crazy. They wanted to skin me alive, and they swore to dig out some shocking news from me. At that time I felt very hopeless." After a pause, she suddenly curved the corners of her lips and looked at him softly. "But when you descended like a god and appeared in front of me with Yu and Xianxia as if by magic, and you personally announced to those reporters that you and I were in a relationship, I was suddenly confused. Kind of." She was startled and seemed to be considering her words carefully. Then, she felt that she was being a little pretentious, so she sighed. "Do you know? Tonight, there were many moments when I was overwhelmed by happiness. But I was also afraid that if I was too happy, God would not like it and beat me back to my original state." "Do you believe in God that much?" Wuxia narrowed his eyes. "How superstitious are you to name Yu with the word God?" "Because people are born with different fates, isn't that so?" Xianxia pouted and asked disapprovingly. "It's not that I'm superstitious, but fate is really mysterious. I have to believe in it." "Little fool." Wuxia pecked between her brows in exasperation and adoration. "From today onwards, you don't have to believe in the heavens anymore. Just trust me. God is the ruler of all things in the world. Do you want to replace him? Humph. You're so ambitious." Xianxia rebuked him on the surface, but she couldn't help laughing in her heart. Wuxia said, "I'm not that ambitious. His voice stopped abruptly. He looked at her deeply and suddenly smiled wickedly. He leaned closer to her face, the tips of their noses touching and their lips touching. His breath smelled like orchids. "I just want to dominate you, that's all." With that, he covered her lips and kissed her. It was a charming kiss. Her lips were warm and soft, with a kind of mesmerizing charm. Once he started kissing her, he didn't want to stop. The tip of his tongue nimbly pried open the gap between her lips and went in deep, seducing her to kiss more. However, at such a harmonious moment, there would always be someone who didn't know what was good for them to do. Sizzle, sizzle. The sound of fireworks crackling came from afar and came closer. "Daddy. Mommy." Chapter 2662. Yu ran to her side and smiled, but his sharp eyes caught a trace of lipstick on Xianxia's lips. He frowned slightly and glanced suspiciously at the man who had been pushed to the side. He saw a trace of red at the corner of the man's lips, which seemed to be stained by something. He was a meticulous person. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, he understood everything at once. "I was wondering where you guys were. It turns out that you were hiding here to steal a kiss behind Xianxia and my back." Yu huffed. Xianxia looked even more embarrassed. No. You're still denying it? Don't try to lie to Yu. I'm not that stupid, Wuxia. I'm not that gullible." The little guy said matter-of-factly. Wuxia wanted to punch him. What a killjoy. It was always him who spoiled the mood. Could he be more observant? Seeing the veins on Wuxia's forehead bulging, Yuntianyu knew that his daddy must be angry about being interrupted. He ignored him, pulled Xianxia's hand and said coquettishly, Mommy, let's set off fireworks, okay? It's already the new year. Why are we still setting off fireworks? Mommy doesn't know how to be romantic at all. Today is a special day. Yu is especially happy, so we want to set off fireworks to celebrate. Wuxia suddenly leaned in and said, also today is White Valentine's Day. White Valentine's Day. Yes. Mui Chen looked at his father in disdain and said resentfully, someone really doesn't know how to be romantic. He doesn't even know about White Valentine's Day. Fail, fail. Xianxia covered her mouth and snickered. Yu snorted. Still, since Daddy performed well today, I won't hold it against him. Mui Chen nodded in agreement. Yes, yes. Mommy, let's go set off fireworks. Xianxia carried him and coaxed him. All right. What kind of fireworks do you want to set off? I want to set off the kind that explodes in the sky. There are still some in the warehouse. We didn't manage to set them off during the new year. Xianxia carried him to the warehouse as she nagged. Mui Chen walked over to Mui Chen's side and raised two of them. Amidst the colorful lights, his tender face, which looked especially cute. Daddy too? Childish. Yichand of Mu. Of Mu. Ouch. Frowning in pain, the boy hurriedly explained, I was just joking. Really? Yes. Mui Chen nodded solemnly. If my surname is also Yun, and Daddy is the only one with the surname Mu, won't Daddy become a loner? How pitiful will that be? A certain pitiful man glared at him angrily. What was this guy talking about? He was both angry and amused at the same time. The light on the glow stick in his hand suddenly went out. Mui Chen threw the glow stick on the ground and looked up with a warm smile. But no matter who I choose, Daddy won't really mind, right? Mui Chen was stunned. He really didn't care much about the child's surname. Chapter 2663. Because when you love someone and truly put that person in your heart, you won't care about these trivial things at all. Daddy, I'm so happy tonight. Because our family is finally reunited in the truest sense. Mui Chen smiled, but his eyes were a little wet. He rubbed his eyes clumsily, feeling so happy that he didn't know what to do. Wuxia couldn't help but reach out and rub his son's head helplessly. I've never seen you cry before. It's because I'm excited. Mui Chen's eyes suddenly lit up. Does this mean that you and I can openly hold hands and go shopping with Mommy in the future? Yes. Then I don't have to be afraid of those reporters who secretly take photos of me kissing, hugging Mommy? Yes. Hooray! Hooray, Daddy. Mui Chen jumped happily. You're so proud. Yes, of course. Daddy can also kiss Mommy openly. We don't have to make it look like we're having an affair like before. Affair. The corner of Wuxia's eyes twitched. Where did you learn this word? You taught me. Wuxia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He suddenly picked up Mui Chen and scratched the bridge of his nose. Okay, let's stop fooling around. Let's go set off the fireworks. The next day. Regarding the press conference last night, Wuxia and Xianxia's relationship was officially announced. The entire entertainment industry was in an uproar. Especially on the internet and Weibo, all the fans were in an uproar. Many fans who originally stood on Ji Yan's side and supported her under the banner of defending love were caught off guard by the 360-degree reversal of the situation. What? The original wife, Ji Yan, is the real third party? And Xianxia, who has always been regarded as a shameful third party, is actually innocent? Everything was a sinister plot by Ji Yan to sow discord and use Xianxia to hype things up? All the fans were skeptical. They were confused by this unpredictable situation. For a moment, they didn't know who to believe. No one knew how things would change in the next second. However, many fans also realized that they seemed to have wronged the innocent and that Xianxia wasn't as bad as Ji Yan made her out to be. In contrast, Xianxia's ugly face was finally exposed to the public, and the public's opinion instantly turned to her side. Fans who protested against Xianxia not long ago and urged her to leave the entertainment industry now. On Weibo. Xianxia's Weibo. Ji Yan, how can you be so shameless? Shameless. Despicable. I, teat who would teat, evil, I was almost fooled by you, defending TTS love. TTS. Bah. I sympathized with you so much, only to find out in the end that millions of fans were played in the palm of your hand. Why did Extreme Youth hire such a sinister artist to act? Is there no one else in the entertainment industry? I've wronged our Mi Yan before. Mi Yan is so righteous. The moment Xianxia was framed, She immediately stood up to support her. I don't regret being Mi Yan's fan for the rest of my life. Meanwhile, Chapter 2664. The live stream of the press conference exceeded 10 million views, and the replay exceeded 100 million views. At the press conference, Mu Yaja's arrogant and aloof image quickly attracted the adoration of countless fans. Oh my god! Was this the rumored crown prince of the Mu group? He was so young and stunningly handsome. Mu Yaja's name could be said to be prominent in the capital, but few people had seen his real face. He rarely appeared in front of the public and rarely showed himself in front of the camera. Therefore, many people's imaginations of him were probably that of those second-generation heirs who were often exposed by entertainment reporters, unrestrained and indulging in a life of luxury. However, the man who appeared in front of the camera had an extraordinarily handsome face comparable to that of a god. His eyes were deep and exquisite, his nose bridge was high, his thin lips were angular, and his facial features were like the work of the gods. Even the once-in-a-century beauty of the entertainment industry, Xianxia, could not be compared to him. Such a man also had such a prominent status. The former CEO of Dishing Financial Group, the chairman of Jianghu Financial Group, and the CEO of Jianghu Financial Group. With such glorious titles, netizens gave him the title of National Husband. He could obviously rely on his looks to make a living, but he insisted on relying on his capabilities. Some netizens even ridiculed Mu Yaja's performance at the press conference. No matter how they looked at it, he was like a wife-slave. Did you see the way Mu Yaja looked at Xianxia? Full of love. If there was such a man looking at me with such affection and adoration, I would have fallen for his gaze long ago. Oh my God! It turned out that rich and handsome men really did exist. God is really too kind to him, isn't it? There's no justice in this world. All the good men are married. At the same time, many netizens also noticed some minor details. Did you notice a small detail? When little Tianyu said that his surname would be Yun for the rest of his life and would never change it, Mu Yaja's face didn't show any surprise or displeasure. Sigh. Some netizens immediately expressed the same feeling. So gentle and considerate. Take my husband for example. Not long ago, I gave birth to my second child. I joked that I wanted Heir Bao to take after my surname. It was just a joke, but his expression changed instantly. He said that no matter what, I was married to him, and the child would have to take his surname. Actually, I don't care who the child's surname is. It's just that his words make me feel disrespected. I can see that Xianxia is loved and respected at the same time. This topic resonated with many netizens. For a time, the topic #child surname hashtag quickly became a trending topic. Many netizens complained that their husband was especially concerned about his surname. At the same time, they envied Yun Xianxia for being able to marry a wife-protecting maniac like Mu Yaja. One of the netizens, Hua Rong, even joked, "When I saw this news, I suddenly had an idea. I wanted to write a beautiful love story like Mu Yaja and Yun Xianxia. If the novel is officially serialized, it will be called One Child, Two Treasures. The billionaire chief loves his wife to the bone." Huan Yu was also dumbfounded by the development of the situation. Chapter 2665. On the other hand, however, Ji Yan's reputation was completely ruined. Seeing that the public opinion was becoming one-sided, she could no longer hold herself back and made a guest appearance in the celebrity live broadcast room. Facing the camera, she once again made a clarification. When she was interviewed by the media, she once again used the same old cliché, but even the host did not believe her. Finally, Ji Yan could not help but make an even bolder statement. Yun Xianxia rose to her position through the unspoken rules. When she first debuted, she had an unclear entanglement with Mu Yaja. The reason why she was able to get so many precious resources as soon as she debuted was all because of Mu Yaja's support. She has been very arrogant and unreasonable since she was a newcomer. Relying on her countless resources and strong backing, she acted like a tyrant in the crew. There were also complaints about her in the crew. In front of the media, Ji Yan also publicly admitted that she was Yan Bingqing. She began to pour out her grievances to the reporters, such as how, when she was in the production team of The Green Apple, Yun Xianxia used Mu Yaja's backing to act like a big shot. Not only did she bully the low-level staff in the production team, but she also bullied her. The entertainment industry was very particular about seniority. Yun Xianxia was, after all, a greenhorn. She had actually hit her manager and even threatened her. Yan Bingqing could not take it lying down. Seeing that this newbie could not wait to ride on her head, she was naturally indignant. Hence, she wanted to teach her a lesson. Once, during filming, she got into an argument with her in the production team. Taking advantage of the filming scene, she could not help but slap Xianxia more than a dozen times. She didn't expect that her behavior would anger the mysterious sugar daddy behind her. After that, she was suppressed, banned, and shelved. In desperation, she fled to Hong Kong and changed her name. Later, in order to return to the entertainment industry, she had no choice but to go to South Korea to undergo plastic surgery to change her appearance and return to the entertainment industry. Because she could not accept it. She wanted to make Xianxia pay the price. The reporters went out of their way to investigate and interview the original cast and crew of The Green Apple, from the actors to the staff. However, to everyone's surprise, the truth was not as Ji Yan had described. Xianxia had a good reputation in the crew. She did not put on any airs as a celebrity. As a newcomer, she was very humble and respected every staff member. Even if it was a cleaner, she would greet them warmly and thank them for their hard work. During the interview, Yongmi said, "Actually, when I first met Xianxia, I didn't really like her. He always felt that this newcomer was too serious. When she was acting, she was very persistent and nitpicky. She could have done it in one take, but she insisted on doing it again. But later, I found out that she was just a little too dedicated to her work. She wanted to perfect her work even more. After getting along with her, I found that she was modest and docile, and then we became good friends. All the crew members like her very much," said a cameraman on the set of The Green Apple. Sometimes, when the staff member in charge of holding the microphone to record the scene was tired, she would often bring in fruits and water. Later, when she was on the set of Lethal Beauty, she gained some fame, but she was not like those newcomers who became famous overnight. She was still the same as before. Chapter 2666. Yan Bingqing, on the other hand, is so arrogant. Isn't she an A-lister? She's a superstar, yet she ignored the set secretary when he asked her to get ready. When she's in a good mood, she'll smile occasionally, but when she's in a bad mood, she treats us like slaves. Yan Bingqing is really hard to please. She's clearly a supporting actress, yet she's so strict with her makeup. Although it's natural for female stars to be strict with their makeup, she's a supporting actress, and the role is a scheming one. The director didn't agree with her at all. She's taking it out on us makeup assistants. Actually, there are many celebrities in the entertainment industry who are big shots once they become popular. However, it's rare to find a big shot like Yan Bingqing. The reporters visited many production teams. It was fine if they didn't mention Yan Bingqing. The moment they mentioned Yan Bingqing's name, all the staff complained. Yan Bingqing was famous for being a big shot. None of the staff members liked her very much. Some actors who had worked with Yan Bingqing before were even hesitant to speak. Although their management companies repeatedly asked them to be careful with their words for fear of offending someone, they still expressed their opinions anonymously, bearing the resentment of being bullied by Yan Bingqing. Yan Bingqing still has the cheek to accuse other artists of using unspoken rules to climb up the ranks? Everyone knows that if it weren't for Imperial Entertainment CEO, Yang Shouqing, who supported her behind the scenes, would she have become popular so quickly? She's pretty but has no acting skills. Her looks are too coquettish, and in the words of the director, she's not popular with the audience, so it's hard for her to stay young in the entertainment industry. Isn't she just relying on hype to attract attention? She doesn't have the ability, so she oppresses the newcomers who do. She became popular by using unspoken rules. I even saw with my own eyes an investor of a production team intimately hugging her waist and entering a hotel together. I heard from a friend who works at the hospital that Yan Bingqing was secretly sent to the hospital last year. It said that she suffered a miscarriage due to an injury. No one knows where the child in her stomach came from. The most surprising thing was that when Gao Nan was revealed to be in the hospital due to his injury, a reporter sneaked into the hospital to interview him and successfully interviewed him in person. On the topic of Ji Yan, Gao Nan unexpectedly overturned his previous statement and explained the whole story with great difficulty. It turned out that at the party that night, the truth was that Xianxia was shocked and angry to see him appear as Ji Yan's boyfriend. Before that, she had seen him as Xiao Shui's boyfriend. She had watched her best friend's boyfriend cheat on her and appear in public with another woman in his arms. She was so angry that she couldn't restrain her anger, and her face didn't look good throughout the party. After her assistant got drunk, she sent her assistant to the bathroom. He followed her and said some flirtatious words to her, which angered her. The two had an argument, and he did make a move on her. Hua Jin, who came later, saw this scene and was so angry that he fought with him. Later, on the way home, he could not hold back his anger and humiliated the woman in front of her. Who knew that, when the woman arrived at the production team, she would embellish his words and spread the rumor that Xianxia had seduced him. Chapter 2667. The reason why he appeared at that media conference and cooperated with Ji Yan's lie was that he was indignant. He had taken a fancy to Xianxia but failed to get her. Thus, he lost his rationality and blurted out those words in a fit of rage. In front of the camera, Gao Nan sincerely apologized to Xianxia, feeling extremely guilty. Because of his selfishness, he had implicated Xianxia and caused her to be misunderstood by the public, causing her to suffer grievances and losses for so long. After this interview was exposed, the public finally understood what was going on. They had wronged Xianxia. Xianxia was not a third party. Xianxia was not a sinner who interfered in other people's relationships. She was innocent. She was innocent. It turned out that Ji Yan had unilaterally slandered Xianxia, while Gao Nan had merely cooperated with her performance out of his own selfish motives. The truth of the matter could not be clearer. Xianxia was innocent. Such an absurd thing had never happened in the entertainment industry. A public figure had actually spread rumors in public. This was not only playing with the kindness of the public, but also flouting the seriousness of the law. Huan Yu had already sent a lawyer's letter to Ji Yan, stating that they would pursue this matter to the end no matter what. As for Ji Yan, she naturally became a sinner for all eternity, and her notoriety spread far and wide. All the fans were shocked, especially those who had wronged Xianxia indiscriminately. They felt especially guilty and expressed their support for Xianxia on the internet, asking for her forgiveness and expressing their heartfelt wishes for her and Mu Yaja's relationship. As for the fans who were originally unsure of the truth and wavering between Ji Yan and Xianxia, they finally understood everything. Although it was difficult to accept the reversal of the truth, they had no choice but to accept such a cruel fact. Their firm belief in Ji Yan's one-sided story collapsed in an instant. Reality had given them a resounding slap in the face. Many fans jointly signed a petition demanding that the production team of Extreme Youth kick Ji Yan out of the cast and ban her completely. Otherwise, they would resolutely boycott the show. Naturally, the production team complied with the public's wishes and issued an announcement to kick Ji Yan out of the cast. Ji Yan's reputation was instantly tarnished. What was even more ridiculous was that Ji Yan still had a trace of wishful thinking and wanted to make a last-ditch struggle. However, the public no longer believed her words. Even the media was not willing to give her a chance to stand in front of the camera and clarify herself. Everyone was disappointed in her. At the same time, Xianxia and Mu Yaja's wedding date was set. May 20th. And a very special auspicious date. The wedding news was announced by Huan Yu. In addition to a public announcement letter, there was also a beautiful wedding photo. The wedding photos were taken in Italy. It was a romantic scene unique to Venice with clear water, clear skies, and classical architecture unique to Europe. Xianxia wore a wedding gown as she held Mu Yaja's arm. Her smile was sweet and elegant, and her face was filled with happiness. It was because of such a happy smile that her face was radiant and charming. Mu Yaja, on the other hand, tilted his head to look at her affectionately. His chiseled side profile was as handsome as that of an ancient Greek god. His deep-set eyes in particular could make one sink into them at first glance. He was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. Chapter 2668. The wedding photos were taken not long ago. However, considering that the announcement of their marriage could not be too monotonous, Xianxia personally chose one. It did not need to go through any complicated post-editing process and was already extremely eye-catching. So beautiful. This is the love that I truly yearn for. To be able to marry for love, what a blissful thing it is. My job is to take wedding photos. I've seen countless wedding photos of newlyweds, but when I saw this wedding photo, it was the first time in my life that I was deeply moved. A person's eyes will not lie. Mr. Mu Yaja must love Xianxia very much. I can tell from his eyes. Those doting eyes, as a single dog, can't wait to kneel on the chair and cry. The biggest taboo in the entertainment industry was to announce one's relationship. Whether it was an actress or a male star, once their relationship was announced, it could mean a change in their acting career. It could also mean that their value would be greatly reduced. It could also affect their popularity and provoke public criticism. However, this pair received the public's approval and blessings. Perhaps it was because Xianxia's image as a victim was too deeply ingrained in people's hearts. Or perhaps it was because the relationship between Wuxia and Xianxia was too touching. Although Xianxia could not be considered a senior artist, in the past, whenever an actress in the entertainment industry announced that she was marrying into a wealthy family, the public would often interpret it excessively. Things like climbing up the social ladder or seeking fame and fortune would often be interpreted in a very embarrassing manner. However, Xianxia was too special. Her sincere confession touched countless people. Even though she was framed by so many people, she still maintained her rationality and did not hurt anyone's feelings. She was clearly in a relationship, but in order to protect it, she buried it deep in her heart. Xianxia's seriousness and persistence in her acting career were also seen by people. Soon, Xianxia and Wuxia's relationship also affected the viewership ratings and reputation of Lethal Beauty. Originally, Lethal Beauty's viewership ratings were usually hovering between second and third place. However, after this incident, Lethal Beauty's viewership ratings made a beautiful turnaround overnight, overtaking the first place in a short while and sitting firmly as the viewership champion. Xianxia's character, Qin Yuyan, was a vicious second female lead. However, when the public looked at this character again and thought about it carefully, they realized why Qin Yuyan's viciousness was so deeply rooted in people's hearts and made them feel disgusted. That was because Xianxia's acting skills were too exquisite. She had completely abandoned Xianxia's pure image in The Green Apple, and cast aside the burden of being an idol. She had portrayed a scheming and vicious villain deeply into people's hearts. There was a scene in which Qin Yuyan failed to plot against Qin Chengel and was schemed against instead. Finally, she was expelled from the family. In a world of ice and snow, she knelt outside the general's mansion. Her tears moistened her eyelashes and froze into ice. All her efforts and calculations were in vain. She cried in despair and kept kowtowing to beg for forgiveness. She put down all her self-esteem and pride and begged for forgiveness from the family. This scene and her exquisite acting skills convinced countless viewers from the bottom of their hearts. After Qin Yuyan's scene ended, the audience was still unsatisfied. The viewership ratings of the rerun increased steadily. Many netizens expressed that they had specially watched the rerun just to see Qin Yuyan's scene. They were still shocked by Xianxia's excellent acting skills. The current entertainment industry was a mess. Chapter 2669. There was an endless stream of young actresses and young hunks. It was as if acting skills, good looks, and high popularity meant that they could earn a sky-high salary by simply acting in a few scripts. Compared to that, the so-called acting skills were not that important. Acting skills were not that important among the younger generation of actors. For the sake of the salary, they could just do it half-heartedly. However, although Xianxia came from a prestigious background, no matter what role she was dealing with, she would put in a lot of effort to figure it out. Her level of professionalism touched many people. The production team of Lethal Beauty posted the script that Xianxia used when she was in the production team on Weibo. Not only did she use a marker to draw out the main points of the lines, but there were also many comments. Her beautiful self made people click their tongues in admiration. It was great. This was the positive image that a young actor should have. The entertainment industry needed such a capable idol. After Lethal Beauty dealt with Gao Hong, many top entertainment programs started to invite Xianxia to appear on the programs. However, what made people not know whether to laugh or cry was that at the same time, there was another request. Many audience members reacted that they wanted to see Xianxia's family of four recording the program together. It would definitely be very heartwarming. Hence, the program team hoped that Qinzhou could do some thinking and invite Xianxia and Wuxia, as well as a pair of adorable children to record the program together. Xianxia went back and mentioned this to Wuxia. She did not expect that Wuxia would readily agree. Xianxia stared at him in shock. "You actually agreed to go on the program?" She had originally thought that if she mentioned this matter, he would definitely not agree. After all, he was very averse to appearing in front of the public and did not like to expose too much of his private life. She did not expect him to agree so readily. "Why, are you very surprised?" "Of course. Although I don't like to appear in front of the camera, but... Mu Yaja suddenly pulled her into his arms, grabbed her chin, and smiled. If it's with you, it's not that I don't have to consider it. It should be very interesting to be on the program with my wife. Xianxia giggled. So, I'm getting special treatment? Aha! Xianxia teased him on purpose. Do you want me to be grateful? That won't be necessary. Mu Yaja said seriously. How would I dare? Didn't you see what they said online? I'm a typical wife slave. I'm afraid of my wife, and I'll do whatever my wife says. Naturally, what you said is an imperial edict. Xianxia was speechless. Are you mocking me? I don't dare. Hey! Xianxia was angry and amused at the same time. Don't make fun of me with those things on the internet. All right, I won't tease you anymore. Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. What program? The Extreme Challenge, a sports program similar to a running. You mean, the kind that runs from head to toe, tearing apart nameplates? Something like that. I've never been on one, and I rarely watch such variety shows. I always feel that they're all scripted and boring. All right. Mu Yaja readily agreed. When the news of Mu Yaja agreeing to participate in the program reached the production team immediately signed a sky-high contract with Huanyu. Mu Yaja's appearance fee was naturally shockingly high. Usually, the market price for an episode of such a program was 1 million yuan. Chapter 2670. After all, with two heavyweight guests, Mu Yaja and Xianxia, joining the show, the production team could make a lot of money just from the advertising bids alone. It was said that Mu Yaja's appearance fee was as high as 10 million yuan, and Xianxia's value naturally rose along with it. Naturally, it was not cheap. However, Huanyu revealed that the two Xiao Baos would not participate in the show's recording for safety reasons, which disappointed many viewers. On the other hand, the announcement of Mu Yaja and Xianxia's marriage made some people feel even more uncomfortable. When Mu Yaja and Xianxia's wedding photos in Italy were posted on Weibo, Xianxia reread the photos dozens of times. From the couple's expressions to the exorbitant wedding gown on Xianxia, she gritted her teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. At the same time, the Songs and the Muse had officially met, and the wedding date was put on the agenda. Considering that Xianxia was pregnant, the Songs requested that the wedding be held as soon as possible. Otherwise, how would it be appropriate for her to get married while pregnant? Mu Yanqing did not have any objections, so the wedding preparations began in full swing. Both the Songs and the Muse were prestigious families in the capital, so the wedding naturally had to be extravagant and grand. Mu Yaja and Xianxia's wedding was set to be in May, so the Muse decided to hold the wedding before them. Planning a wedding was a rather tedious process. From choosing the wedding gown to customizing the gown, from choosing the venue to distributing the wedding invitations, from the dowry to the betrothal gifts, the entire process was extremely demanding. Xianxia was especially strict when it came to choosing her wedding gown. She hoped that her wedding gown would be custom-made by a famous designer, but the wedding date was imminent. The custom-made wedding gown would take a long time, from the design to the workmanship, at least 2 months. However, the wedding date was in late April or early May. It was already late March now. Even if they rushed, it was impossible to make it in time. However, this was a wedding of a lifetime, and Xianxia was unwilling to compromise. Because of this, the two families were in a deadlock. Mu Yanqing was so furious that he almost lost his temper in front of Song Zhonghua and his mother. Marriage was just a formality. They had to make do if they had the means. The wedding date was so rushed that there was no time to customize the wedding dress. The Song family thought that the Mu family clearly had the capital to do so, but they were very perfunctory in this aspect. Therefore, they thought that the Mu family did not care about this marriage at all. Don't challenge the Mu family's bottom line again. My patience is limited, said Mu Yanqing harshly to his niece. Song Zhonghua was so angry that he almost smashed the antique vase in his house. Mu Yanqing is still young and inexperienced, yet he dares to provoke the Mu family. What do you mean by patience is limited? What do you mean by the Mu family's bottom line? This brat was too arrogant. However, Jiang Qiming repeatedly advised against it. The Mu family did not approve of this marriage. If not for Xianxia being pregnant with Mu Yanqing's child, the Mu family would not have approved of this marriage at all. Right now, the Song family and not the Mu family were the ones who were in a difficult position. The cruel reality was right in front of them. If they angered the Mu family, this marriage would be called off, and the Song family would be the one who would be embarrassed in the end. They might as well adapt to the situation and quickly settle the marriage, lest there be any more complications. Chapter 2671. In April, the small town of Yen City was covered with rapeseed flowers. The rapeseed flowers in Yen City were especially beautiful. In this season, they bloomed in large areas. On the hillsides, in the fields, next to the houses, there was a sea of yellow. Yen City was different from those heavy industrial cities. Although it was underdeveloped and economically depressed, the whole town retained the most simple appearance. Short houses, beautiful Hui-style buildings. Every house had a square pond in front of the door, and there was an endless sea of rapeseed flowers at the door. The most famous one was the terraced flowers in Yen City. When taken from the air, it looked like an oil painting. Meng Qingxue settled down in Yen City. At first, she was not used to it, but gradually, she adapted to such a peaceful and stable life. There was no hustle and bustle of the city, no neon lights, and everything retained the most tranquil simplicity. She still got up early every day to work in the handicraft workshop. She worked very hard, sometimes earning more than 100 yuan a day. She was thinking about the child in her belly, hoping to give him a good life with her own ability. Especially when she saw the cute and well-behaved Xiao Bao Chu, she longed to give birth to a child as well-behaved as Xiao Bao Chu. Whether it was a boy or a girl, it was good. Chu Ho still worked in the police station, and Meng Qingxue sometimes came back early to do housework with Xiao Bao Chu. The days were peaceful, but she enjoyed it. After a long time, she forgot the hurt of the relationship and walked out of the shadow. However, one morning, Meng Qingxue was hurriedly sent to the town's clinic. Chu Ho received a call and hurried back, only to be told that Meng Qingxue almost had a miscarriage. According to a villager who worked in the workshop with her, Meng Qingxue's complexion had already turned ghastly pale in the morning. She was drenched in cold sweat and her limbs were cold. The foreman saw her pale face and asked her to go back to rest. However, Meng Qingxue refused, saying that she just did not rest well at night and was fine, so she lowered her head and continued with her work. However, not long after, a sharp-eyed woman from the same village caught a glimpse of Meng Qingxue's chair. It was dark red, and there seemed to be signs of bleeding. She immediately cried out in alarm. Ignoring Meng Qingxue's retreat, everyone hurriedly sent her to the town's clinic. The doctor in the clinic said that there were signs of a miscarriage. Perhaps the pregnancy nutrition did not keep up, or perhaps she was always sitting for a long time because she did heavy work. She should rest in bed more and not overwork. Everyone then realized that Meng Qingxue had not had a good rest since she was pregnant. Chu He frowned and asked the doctor what she should do. The doctor said, "The medical facilities are limited. I suggest that you go to a big hospital in the county and prescribe a few prescriptions for recuperation, as well as a few injections to protect the fetus. Rest well and don't move around too much for now." Meng Qingxue's face turned pale when she heard that. She hurriedly refused. "Don't go to a big hospital, okay? Don't tell me the clinic doesn't have any injections? The clinic doesn't have such facilities," the doctor said bitterly. "We usually only treat bruises and colds. We can't do anything about your condition. Miss, your body's condition is not very optimistic. You might have a miscarriage." Chapter 2672. "I can't go. I can't go." Chu Ho's frown deepened. He walked up to Meng Qingxue and questioned, "Are you crazy? Why don't you go to a big hospital? Don't you want to keep the child in your stomach?" "Of course. I want to keep him, no matter what the cost. It's just that." Meng Qingxue furrowed her brows. It was not that she did not have any concerns about going to a big hospital in the county. Ever since she became pregnant, she had not dared to go to a big hospital, afraid that Mu Yanqing would still be tracking her whereabouts. Now that medical treatment was all online, what if Mu Yanqing found her medical records and chased her here? She shuddered uncontrollably at the thought of his cruel words. If he found her and found out that she had not aborted the child and wanted to give birth to it secretly, what would he do? He would definitely send her to the hospital and force her to undergo an abortion. Would he force her to be separated from her child? At the thought of this, Meng Qingxue's tears fell. "I'm scared." "You," Chu Ho said angrily, "what exactly are you worried about?" Meng Qingxue looked around, seemingly a little apprehensive. Chu Ho also looked around and immediately helped her to the inner room. He helped her sit on the hospital bed and drew the curtains. He turned around and asked, "Are you worried that that man will chase you here?" Meng Qingxue nodded with a conflicted expression. She looked at him worriedly and said anxiously, "Chu Ho, he won't acknowledge this child. He'll definitely force me to abort it. If that's the case, I'll definitely go crazy." "What are you afraid of?" Chu Ho snorted. "If he dares to do that, I'll cripple his hand." Meng Qingxue was shocked and suddenly said, You can't beat him. How can you boost the morale of others and diminish your own prestige?" Chu Ho sighed in annoyance. Suddenly, he thought of something and paced back and forth. Suddenly he said, "If you're worried that your medical records will be traced online, then I can try to use my connections to erase your records." "Can we do that?" "Yes. The deputy director of the county hospital and I have some friendship with him. I've dealt with him a few times. Let's not talk about this for now. Your body's condition is so bad. It's not good to ignore it." Meng Qingxue nodded. Chu Ho bit his lip when he saw how dejected and helpless she looked. He suddenly squatted down and said calmly, "Qingxue, you're not a child anymore. You're going to be a mother soon. You're going to be a mother. But look at you now. Once the child is born, can you really protect him? Although women are born weak, but since you have made up your mind to be strong alone, then you have to pull yourself together." Meng Qingxue nodded. "Don't worry. With me around, no one can hurt you. I'll protect you well. If anyone wants to hurt you or the child in your stomach, I'll fight them to the death." "Thank you." Meng Qingxue thanked him from the bottom of her heart. "If you really want to thank me, why don't you listen to me and go to the county with me now? Take care of your body first, okay?" Chu Ho consoled her patiently. Suddenly, he reached out and gently rubbed the strands of hair in front of her forehead. "Don't worry. With me around, no matter what happens, I'll protect you." Meng Qingxue hugged his shoulders. Chapter 2673. Chu Ho, how good would it be if you were a man? If you were, I would probably fall in love with you uncontrollably. Chu Ho's eyebrows twitched violently. What did she mean by that? Was she saying that she was manly? That she was a strong boyfriend? That wasn't a good comment for a woman, was it? Chu Ho brought Meng Qingxue home and planned to send her to the county for a prenatal checkup. There weren't many advanced forms of transportation in town, let alone buses and taxis. Only the county had such modern forms of transportation. Most people in the village traveled by motorcycles. She had just bought her motorcycle last year, but compared to the older motorcycles, Chu Ho's motorcycle was more domineering. This motorcycle was a second-hand one that she had specially searched for online. It had been abandoned by a young motorcyclist in a city not far from Yen City. After buying it and repairing it, she had only spent about 2,000 yuan. Chu Ho didn't know that she had an innate talent for machinery. She didn't expect that under her efforts, the old motorcycle would have a brand new look. Many people were extremely envious, especially the young people in the village. A motorcycle like this was the dream of many young people. It was cool and handsome, but it would cost at least 7,000 to 8,000 yuan. Chu Ho had spent more than 1,000 yuan to buy it and another 1,000 yuan to repair it. This wasn't something that ordinary people could do. The weather in April was still a little cold. Chu Ho was worried that she would catch a cold, so he went home and bought her a thick coat. According to the rules, you should have a prenatal checkup every month. As Chu He adjusted her clothes, she said, "But I saw that you've been here for so long, and you didn't mention anything about going to the hospital. I, on the other hand, was careless. I should have asked." Meng Qingxue smiled. I don't know much about these things." "You don't know?" Chu Ho smiled helplessly. As an expectant mother, it's unreasonable that you don't know about these things. No matter what, you should pay more attention to your health, right? I'm starting to regret introducing you to the handicraft workshop. I just heard from the foreman that you can make more than 10 lanterns a day. Some old craftsmen can only do that much. Are you crazy? Why do you have to work so hard for your health? I need money. Meng Qingxue was extremely embarrassed. I need money to maintain my life. What if the child is born and I don't have money? Then you can't joke about your health. Chu He stood up and crossed her arms. Have you ever heard of this saying? Everything will work out when it comes to it. Okay. Right now, you just need to take care of the baby. Don't think too much about other things, understand? As for money, I have some savings, so you don't have to worry about it. Meng Qingxue was stunned. Chu Ho's gentleness made her feel even more at a loss. However, she heard him say again, the wage level in Yen City is relatively low. Moreover, no matter what work it is, it's hard and tiring. Sometimes, even if you work hard, you can only earn about 2,000 yuan a month. It's difficult to support yourself, let alone the child. Chu Ho. Meng Qingxue sighed helplessly. The better you treat me, the more guilty I feel. I must have caused you a lot of trouble, right? Chapter 2674. Chu Ho frowned and smiled. Qingxue, I still have to thank you. You coming to my house has added a lot of fun to this originally lonely house. Xiao Bao likes you a lot. With you around, he won't be so lonely. And because of my work, I can't accompany him all the time. With you around I can be at ease. Chu Ho, haven't you ever thought of trying to find those lost memories? Meng Qingxue finally mustered up the courage to ask. Your identity, your past, your family, and Xiao Bao's biological father. Chu Ho's hands paused for a few seconds. She suddenly looked up and looked at her deeply. Her lips suddenly curved. Of course I've thought about it. I was thinking that when I had enough savings, I would go out into the outside world and take a look. Maybe it would be able to jog my memories. When the time comes, why don't we go together? Okay. Meng Qingxue smiled knowingly. Chu Ho sent her to the county's maternity and child health hospital. After a series of checkups, the doctor said that Meng Qingxue was exhausted and overworked. In addition, she sat for a long time and did not have enough nutrition. Therefore, there were signs of a miscarriage. After receiving a pregnancy-stabilizing injection, the doctor repeatedly reminded her not to overwork herself and to have regular checkups. Otherwise, she could easily have a miscarriage. Meng Qingxue was frightened when she heard this. When she thought about how she had almost lost the child in her womb because of carelessness, she could not help but feel a lingering fear. The doctor could not help but ask, "Where's the child's father?" Meng Qingxue's lips twitched, but she did not say anything in the end. The doctor saw that she seemed to be avoiding something and saw the complicated look in her eyes. He knew that this was probably a sensitive topic, so he did not pursue it further. On the way home, Chu Ho passed by a fruit stall. She paused and immediately stopped. Meng Qingxue was surprised when she saw her walk to the fruit stall and pick some fruits. The fruits in the county are cheaper. There are very few fruits for sale in the village, and even if there are, they are expensive. Why don't we pick a few fruits to eat at home? As Chu Ho spoke, he suddenly asked, Well, I remember now. When I was pregnant with Xiao Bao, I especially liked to eat sour food. In the end, I couldn't find any sour food even after searching for half the night. So, why don't I prepare some sour plums for you, in case you suddenly want to eat something sour but can't find it? I don't really want to eat something sour, Meng Qingxue said. This time, it was Chu Ho's turn to be surprised. Isn't it said that pregnant women especially like to eat sour things when they have morning sickness? Like plum blossoms or something like that. Indeed, I've heard people say that, but I really don't have such desires. You're really special. However, just in case, it's better to prepare some. Meng Qingxue asked with a smile. That's great, we're really fated. When the time comes, I can even learn from you. Seeking scriptures? For example, does it hurt to give birth? I've heard that childbirth is especially painful for women. Chu Ho's expression changed, and she said sternly, Giving birth is indeed very painful. But I'm very painful. I don't know if you are. Did you have a natural birth? Yes. The doctor said that my physical fitness is good and suggested that I have a natural birth. He said that natural birth is good for the body and that I can recover quickly. After all, a cesarean section is an operation, and it's very damaging to the vitality. Chapter 2675. If it's a natural birth, you won't be able to give me anesthesia. Meng Qingxue was a little embarrassed. I really can't take pain. A natural birth will only take a short while. Once the cervix opens, it'll only take 1 or 2 hours. 1 or 2 hours? Meng Qingxue was speechless. I heard that some pregnant women only had one night in their entire life. In the end, they had a difficult labor and even suffered a knife wound. Those were those who didn't listen to the doctor's advice and insisted on a natural birth. Everyone's physique is different. Some are suitable for natural birth, while others are not. The doctor will always state the risks in advance and give them a preventive shot. Chu Ho picked a few apples, tomatoes, and a bunch of bananas. When Meng Qingxue saw that, she couldn't help but be curious. Chu Ho, I'm actually very curious. Who were you in the past? You're so good at martial arts. You must have been a police officer in the past, right? I don't know. I don't have any impression of that at all. Meng Qingxue snickered. Xiao Bao's biological father must be very handsome. Xiao Bao is so beautiful, but Xiao Bao's eyes don't look like yours. Thinking about it, Xiao Bao's father must be a dragon among men. You're so beautiful and so outstanding. Xiao Bao's father must be very outstanding too. So nosy. Chu Ho frowned. What about you? The child's father must be very handsome too. Meng Qingxue's face stiffened for a moment, then she nodded. Should I not have brought this up? No. Meng Qingxue smiled. It's just that if you didn't mention it, I would have almost forgotten about him. Don't tell me you have amnesia too. Chu Ho got on the motorcycle and passed the helmet to her. He said half jokingly, half seriously, "What did you say about forgetting about him?" It's just that you've sealed him away in some corner, and deliberately didn't want to think about him. Meng Qingxue put on the helmet in a daze, then carefully got on the back seat and hugged her shoulders. However, Chu Ho's voice was heard. Why did you leave him in the first place? You don't mind me asking this, right? We've been together for so long. There are some things that I want to ask you, but I'm afraid to hurt you. But sometimes the more you try to avoid it, the more you avoid it. Meng Qingxue was stunned for a long time before she sighed. It's impossible for us to be together in the first place. It was just that he had fallen too deeply in love back then and was stubborn in his own way. He naively thought that true love could change everything. But in the end, he was too naive, too pure. To him. You make it sound as if you've seen through the world of mortals and know all the men in the world like the back of your hand. Chu He started the car and lowered her head with a smile. You know him that well. How do you know that your to him is a joke? Meng Qingxue was silent for a long time. Then she suddenly laughed. Actually, I was obsessed with him back then. He was too dazzling. He had an extraordinary family background and handsome looks. At that time, I was still a model who had just debuted. A model? Chu Ho was a little surprised. You're a model? Chu Ho was a little surprised, but he felt that it was only natural. Oh, no wonder. You have such a good figure and good looks. Chapter 2676. My family didn't have much money, and my parents didn't care much about me. They left me to my own devices. I didn't have much ability in my studies, so I dropped out of school early. So, I started working at a young age, washing dishes and serving dishes for others. Once, I met a man who claimed to be a talent scout. He said that my looks were a sign and asked me if I was interested in signing with a modeling agency. I saw that the treatment was good, so I agreed. But when I stepped into the industry, I wasn't used to it. My impression of a model should be one that walks on the international runway. But the model that signed with that modeling agency, in my opinion, looks like a high-class escort. Plus, they all have clearly marked prices. Chu Ho was speechless. Clearly priced. Yes. For example, how much would it cost to have a meal, sleep with, or play with? Those who were good-looking and had good conditions would be chosen by the big boss. As for those who were just passable, the modeling agency would spend money to arrange for them to have plastic surgery. In my opinion, wasn't this a disguised form of receiving customers? What about you? Chu Ho asked. Did you run away? I didn't dare. Meng Qingxue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I signed a contract with them in a moment of folly. If I had just run away, I would have faced a sky-high penalty. Moreover, the modeling agency is controlled by the mafia. There was once a girl who was 2 years older than me who ran away from the agency and violated the contract. In the end, she was caught by the mafia. I heard that she was crippled and her arms and legs were broken. Chu Ho couldn't help but feel indignant when he heard this. Was there such a thing? Yes. People's hearts are sinister. I didn't know any better, but then I met him at a meal. Yes, to be honest, when I first saw him, he was handsome, tall, and had a good figure. He was better looking than many celebrities in the entertainment industry. I took a second look at him, and he noticed me too. After that we got together. And then, at that time, I didn't know who he was. I only knew that he was very capable. He knew that I had a financial dispute with the agency. With just a phone call, he got me out of the agency's control. At that time I admired him. He was so amazing, like a hero. Perhaps at that time, I was hopelessly in love with him. Later on, I found out about his identity. I originally thought that he was a rich second-generation heir. At that time, he also pursued me very passionately. I agreed and became his girlfriend. I wholeheartedly wanted to be with him for the rest of my life. At that time, she had read too many romance novels and thought that all love in the world was the same. I love him, and he will love me. It's that simple. We can be a couple for life. But... Chapter 2677. Chu Ho asked curiously, "How did you find out?" Meng Qingxue said sadly, "One day, a woman came to look for me. When I opened the door, she gave me a slap and called me a vixen. Gosh, I was totally baffled at that time. What vixen? I'm so confused. What's there to miss about a man like him?" Chu Ho was furious. After that incident, I was very sad too. I had an argument with him for the first time. I cried and threw a tantrum, hoping that he would give me a reasonable explanation. But he said that what he did was what he did, and there was no need for an explanation. He said that other than me, he had many other women. But most of them only lasted for one night, and then we parted ways. Because of his family background, he didn't have a deep affection for women. To him, women were just tools for his biological needs. The reason why I could stay by his side for so long was because I was obedient. Secondly, it was because he had some feelings for you and me. But even if he had feelings for me, if I threw a tantrum, he would be annoyed. Chu Ho actually felt a tinge of despair and heartache from her calm and composed tone. A man like that should leave as soon as possible. Yeah, I used to convince myself that too. Meng Qingxue suddenly laughed mockingly. But I was so naive that I wanted to change him. Because I could feel that he loved me. Maybe there would be a day when he would give up on those luxuries and stay by my side? You could feel that he loved you? Yeah. For example? Many details. For example, when I was sick, he would stay by my side. When I was in a bad mood, he would hug me in his arms and coax me like he was coaxing a child. Maybe it's because I never had the warmth of a family in my childhood, and no one had ever doted on me like he did. I thought that this was love, right? He is the person who has treated me the best in my life. Chu Ho didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You were fooled by that little trick? Qingxue, you're still too naive. Meng Qingxue's lips trembled for a while, and then she said innocently, because, really, no one has ever treated me as gently as he did. How could that be? Do your parents not care about you at all? Well, because I'm not my father's biological daughter. What? Chu Ho was shocked. Meng Qingxue said truthfully, I heard it from my brother. My younger brother said that I wasn't from this family and that I wasn't his biological child. When I was 3 years old, my father took me to the hospital for a DNA test and it was confirmed that I wasn't his biological child. It turns out that when my mother married him, she was already pregnant. My father has been neglecting me since I was young. After I had a younger brother, he threw me to my hometown and didn't care about me anymore. As for my mother, she more or less had to consider my father's feelings. After all, for an outsider like me, my father was already being lenient by not throwing me away. My whole family sees me as a disgrace. So, Chu Ho was a little helpless. This isn't your fault alone. So when he treated me so well, I fell into a whirlpool and lost all rationality. Meng Qingxue laughed at herself. Isn't it funny? No, I just feel a little sorry for you. Chapter 2678. So, you plan to change him? What happened in the end? Later, I found out about his identity. His background was extraordinary, and his family was one of the most prestigious families in the capital. My original wish of marrying him and having children with him completely became an extravagant hope. At that time, I thought that it was probably impossible for me to be with him forever. But even so, I still foolishly stayed by his side. Every day, I hypnotized myself and lied to myself, but I was just greedy for the warmth of his embrace. I also thought of leaving him freely, but in such a big city, every corner was filled with memories of him. Leaving him, I always felt that my life was incomplete. There were a few times when I packed my luggage, but in the end, I couldn't help but sneak back. Later, I found out that I was pregnant. I was both happy and scared. I was happy that this child was his flesh and blood. I always felt that my dream was close to half. I fantasized that he would acknowledge this child, marry me, and start a family. But what's more frightening is that I'm afraid his family will reject me. He knew and wanted you to abort the child? No. Meng Xianxia paused and said sadly, he said that the child could be born, and he would acknowledge this child, but he would never marry me. He said that he would buy me a villa, hire a nanny for me, give me a sky-high living allowance, and take on the responsibility of a father. But it's impossible for us to get married. He could give me everything, but he couldn't give me a status. You're the best, Chu Ho commented coldly. Meng Xianxia said unwillingly, but I want a status. No matter if I'm poor or rich, I want to be his wife. I don't want those villas, I don't want alimony, I just want to be with him. You're so silly. I also think that I'm too silly. If that's the case, why did you leave him? Because, Meng Xianxia was silent for a long time before she slowly said, that's because I wanted to lay my cards on the table with him that night. If he didn't want me, I would have hardened my heart and forced myself to leave him in this city. But I made many calls, and in the end, a woman answered. She said that he was already asleep and tired. At that time, my heart was completely cold and hurt. I was in despair. She was clearly provoking me. I'm also tired, so I want to make a clean break with him. Before I left, I sent him a text message, telling him that I would abort the child and asking him not to look for me. I don't think he'll look for me, right? When I left, I only took some money and some personal belongings. I returned everything to him and left without hesitation. Why are you leaving? Chu Ho was displeased. Meng Xianxia was stunned. You left because of a woman's provocation? Chu Ho suddenly burst into laughter. Then why have you persisted for so long? He had persisted like an idiot for so long. Was he going to leave just because of this? Then wouldn't everything you've done before become a complete joke? Yes, you are very carefree, but when you should be carefree, you shouldn't be carefree. When you shouldn't be carefree, leaving just like that will only let others get what they want. Look, he chased you away so easily. He must be so proud of himself that he'll wake up laughing in his dreams. Chapter 2679. Chu Ho said. Xianxia, I really can't figure it out. You shouldn't have left him. Since you've never been a carefree woman, forcing yourself to be carefree will only backfire. Perhaps it's because I'm headstrong and stubborn. If I were you, I wouldn't have been tempted from the start. I wouldn't have fallen for him. I would have left decisively before I fell too deeply. However, once I fell too deeply, I would have snatched him back no matter how many women he had. Whether he had a status or not, I want his body and mind to be mine. There's no room for other women. Since you've persisted for so long, be it foolishness or naivety, why didn't you persevere until the end? Meng Xianxia bit her lip hard as her eyes suddenly welled up with tears. But there's no hope between us. Since you can't get happiness, you shouldn't let him have his way. If he can turn your life upside down, then you can also turn his life upside down. Anyway, it's just torturing each other. It's good to be tied down for the rest of your life. Meng Xianxia was stunned for a moment. She thought that Chu Ho would persuade her to leave that man and start a new life. She did not expect that she would disagree with her carefree attitude and think that she should not just leave. Chu Ho said indignantly, yes, you seem very carefree when you leave just like that, but from the beginning to the end, you've never really let him go. There's a name in your heart that you can't erase. Such a name will accompany you for the rest of your life. Is that really carefree? To me, it's either completely forgetting or being entangled for the rest of my life. But can you really forget him completely? You see, I just mentioned him by accident, and your face immediately changed. It's impossible for you to let go of him, And you can't let go of this obsession. You're just lying to yourself. Why bother? If it were me, I would definitely snatch him back at all costs. Meng Qingxue was stunned. She furrowed her brows. Indeed, as Chuho said, she could not let go of that man. Mu Yanqing was a name that was deeply engraved in her heart and occupied the best moments of her life. She loved him. Even though he wasn't a perfect man and had many imperfections, she was still obsessed with him as if she was possessed. Then, Meng Qingxue suddenly asked, then, if you meet Xiao Bao's biological father one day, maybe he was the man you loved deeply, but at that time if he already had another woman, or even a wife, would you do the same? Snatch him back? This is different in nature. How is this different? Chuho said, even if that day comes, it will depend on whether I like him or not. If I didn't have any feelings for him, why would I snatch him back? If I love him, but he forgets me and has a family of his own, then I cannot destroy it. But you're different. He doesn't belong to anyone, so you don't have to worry about ethics. Meng Qingxue nodded. I understand. I hope you really understand. A person's life is very short. If you don't have the courage to fight for what you like and want, then wouldn't you have lived in vain? Chuho, you're really carefree. Chapter 2680. After that, Meng Qingxue stopped working in the workshop. Under Chuho's persuasion, the two of them reached a consensus. Chuho was responsible for making money, and Meng Qingxue was responsible for taking care of the baby. During this period, all expenses would be borne by Chuho. When the baby was over the breastfeeding period, Meng Qingxue would then consider her future plans. Although the workshop was not as tiring as working in a factory, in fact, the doctor also said that it was not good for a pregnant woman to sit for too long. In addition, she did not take enough vitamins and nutrition. If this continued, she would be anemic. Chuho patted his chest and promised her that he would take good care of her and the baby in her belly. She had a good physique, so she would not be too tired if she took on another part-time job. Because her work in the police station was not part of the establishment, her working hours were very regular. She did not need to rush to duty in case of an emergency like the other police officers. Therefore, she took on another part-time job, which was to drain water and electricity at the construction site in town. Although Yen City was a relatively backward town, it was not a remote village. The government was also vigorously developing Yen City's economy. So many construction sites needed manpower. Draining water and electricity was a technical job, and Chuho seemed to know the trick. He learned it quickly and could earn a few thousand yuan a month to supplement the family. Meng Qingxue half-jokingly said that Chuho was like a man who was responsible for making money to support the family, while she was like a full-time housewife. Chuho just smiled knowingly. When Meng Qingxue was taking care of the baby at home, she planted extra flowers and cleaned the house. When she was energetic, she would accompany Xiao Bao to fly kites in the fields. She was very comfortable. She worked in the workshop for a long time, so she made friends with many peasant women in the village. These simple peasant women pitied her and would occasionally bring some vegetables and fruits to visit. Meng Qingxue was nimble with her hands, and in addition, she was very vain. Therefore, she gave these peasant women some beautiful hairstyles. The peasant women in the village had never seen such a novel hairstyle and were very vain. Therefore, they came even more diligently. When they were free, they would bring the rice and vegetables they planted to visit. Every month, Chuho would bring her to the county's hospital for a prenatal checkup. Although Chuho acted like a man, he was actually very meticulous and took good care of her. Meng Qingxue sometimes thought that she was really lucky to have met Chuho. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Although Chuho had been paying attention, there were some things that could not be hidden. On this day, Mu Yanqing was trying on a wedding gown with Xianxia when a call came in. When she saw the number on the screen, her expression turned solemn. She walked to a corner with the phone in her hand and picked it up. She went straight to the point. Have you found her? Previously, when she found out that Mu Yanqing was still secretly looking for Meng Qingxue's whereabouts, she became more vigilant and secretly sent people to search for Meng Qingxue's whereabouts. She wanted to find Meng Qingxue's whereabouts before Mu Yanqing did and kill the child in the latter's womb before the latter did. She mobilized all the manpower that she could. In the past, the Mu group was all-powerful and had a wide network of connections. However, these resources were all under Mu Yaja's control. Chapter 2681. If it were Mu Yaja looking for someone, he would be able to find a detailed trace within half a month at most. This was due to Mu Yanqing's carelessness. Song Enya was one step ahead of him and found out about Meng Qingshue's whereabouts. The person on the other end of the phone lowered his voice and said, "Miss Song, according to your instructions, we've done a carpet search and have found her exact whereabouts. This woman has escaped to a very remote county and is living in an unknown village. We followed her for 2 to 3 days and found her going in and out of a maternal and child health hospital in the county with a woman. We then found the doctor who did her prenatal checkup and bribed him with some money. We found out that the child in her stomach is already 13 weeks old. It seems that woman wants to give birth to the child secretly." Song Enya clenched her fists when she heard this. Just as she was about to say something, someone knocked on the door. "Song Enya." It was Mu Yanqing's voice. "Which wedding gown have you chosen? I have a meeting at the company later, so I have to leave now." Song Enya was stunned and immediately said in a deep voice, "That's all for now. I'll contact you later." With that, she hurriedly hung up the phone and put it into her handbag. When she opened the door, she saw Mu Yanqing's impatient face. She was instantly displeased. "What's wrong? You're losing your patience already? I haven't finished trying them on yet. How can I make a decision? Wedding gowns come in the same style. In my opinion, there's no difference." Song Enya walked out of the fitting room and sized him up with furrowed brows. She thought about how this man had been a little absent-minded even though he had agreed to their marriage on the surface and had been preparing for it for so long. He was probably still thinking about that woman. Otherwise, why would he still not give up and continue to search for that woman's whereabouts? That woman was pregnant with his child. She was also pregnant with his child, but Song Enya could clearly feel that his focus was very biased. After all, the child in her stomach came about through other means, while the child in Meng Qingshue's stomach was planted by that man himself. In terms of feelings, he still cared more about that child. This was something she absolutely could not tolerate. Just think about it. They were not married yet, and he was already so cold to her. What about after they got married? What if that woman successfully gave birth to a boy? At that time, that woman suddenly came to her senses and brought the child back to him for an explanation? This man would inevitably be blinded for a moment. Then, her position in the Mu family could be said to be in jeopardy. She had put in a lot of effort and finally climbed to this step. She definitely couldn't let that woman have her way. That child must not be allowed to live. At the thought of this, Song Enya curled her lips coldly, but a coquettish look quickly appeared on her face. "Yanqing, why do you always give me this look? We're not even married yet, but you're already so impatient with me. You don't even want to accompany me to try on the wedding dress." "Yanqing, I've thought about it. Since we're getting married, can't we just be together?" Mu Yanqing furrowed his brows. He was rather surprised by her sudden change in attitude. Chapter 2682. Sometimes, she would even throw a tantrum at him, intentionally or unintentionally. She probably felt that it was not good for the two of them to always be at each other's throats. She was going to marry into the Mu family eventually, so she had to do something about their relationship. It would be inappropriate for them to be at each other's throats after marriage. Hence, Song Enya seemed to be trying very hard to please him recently. She had also made concessions and compromises in many areas. Mu Yanqing's expression softened a little. He did not rush her again but turned around and returned to the sofa. Song Enya watched his back as the corners of her lips curled up coldly. She then chose a wedding gown and went into the fitting room to try it on. She then walked out and asked him, "What do you think of this one?" Mu Yanqing finally looked at her in the eye. He had promised to accompany her to try on the wedding gown. After all, it would be inappropriate for a bride-to-be to try on a wedding gown alone if word got out. As her fiancé, it was his duty to accompany her to try on the wedding gown. Hence, he took the time to come. However, the moment he sat down, he picked up an entertainment magazine from the bookshelf and started reading it. He allowed Song Enya to do what she wanted without asking for his opinion. The store manager introduced from the side, "This mermaid wedding gown suits your figure better. Miss Song, you have a good figure and are exquisite. This gown suits you very well." Mu Yanqing could not help but take another look. Seeing that he was sizing her up, Song Enya cooperated and twirled in a circle. She smiled slightly, looking like a shy and blissful bride-to-be. His gaze could not help but turn misty. His thoughts were running wild. He suddenly recalled a long time ago when he accompanied Meng Qingxue to the mall to pick out a dress. At that time, Meng Qingxue did not know who he was. Meng Qingxue loved to dress up, but she rarely asked him to accompany her to the mall. Firstly, he did not have much free time. Secondly, she could not bear to spend money. After all, she did not have a job and had no source of income. She did not have the confidence to spend his money. But that day was her birthday, so he promised to go shopping with her and buy some clothes. He brought her to the counter and personally selected the items for her. Meng Qingxue cautiously glanced at the price tag. When she saw the 5-digit price tag, her heart sank and she could not help but tremble with fear. She sought his opinion. "Yanqing, the clothes here are so expensive. Why don't we go somewhere else to take a look? Most of the clothes in this mall are from international brands. The clothes are not cheap. No matter which store you go to, you will see the same price." Meng Qingxue's expression changed all of a sudden. She seemed to be at a loss. When he saw that, he couldn't help but laugh. Her timid expression actually satisfied his male chauvinism. Thus he said heroically, "Today is your birthday, and you're the main character. Moreover, it's not like I don't have the financial ability to do so. If you like it, you can try it on. If it looks good, you can take it." "So generous?" Meng Qingxue laughed. "Then I'll pick whatever I want." "Okay." Mu Yanqing sat at the side and watched as the little lass excitedly picked out a few sets of clothes and entered the fitting room. When she slowly walked to him in a long rose-red dress, she nervously pinched the hem of her dress and asked tentatively, "How does this look?" Chapter 2683. She had a great figure. After all, she came from the modeling industry. Her legs were slender and beautiful, and she looked good in everything. "Turn around and take a look." Meng Qingxue turned around shyly. Mu Yanqing nodded. "This is it. Get the staff to pack it up." But this dress costs more than 90,000 yuan. When she first saw the price tag, she rubbed her eyes repeatedly and instantly lost her confidence. If her monthly salary was 6,000 yuan, she would have to starve for more than a year before she could afford this dress. "This is it." Mu Yanqing was full of pride. Following that, she swiped her card and packed it up. The whole process was smooth. When the staff respectfully handed the packed dress to her, Meng Qingxue had a suspicious look on her face. Looking at his expression, it seemed that something was amiss. He did not feel any pain at all. He did not look like he had paid tens of thousands of yuan at all. She silently cursed in her heart. A dress costs tens of thousands. Can't this make you frown? However, at that time, Meng Qingxue did not know that this amount of money was not even worth mentioning to Mu Yanqing. "Here. Your birthday present." He handed the dress to her with a gentle look in his eyes. Meng Qingxue took the bag and felt a little giddy. She was even a little in disbelief. She hugged him excitedly like a happy child. Her face could not hide the joy of joy. "Thank you." She kissed his cheek. Her face was flushed red with contentment and happiness. That satisfied look in her eyes had become an unforgettable memory for him. At that time, he realized that happiness could be bought with money. "How is it, Yanqing?" Xianxia said with some resentment. "You've been staring at me in a daze for a long time. Do I look good?" Mu Yanqing immediately came back to his senses. He retracted his gaze awkwardly and nodded. "Yes, not bad." "Not bad" means that it's oh. "Then, I'll pick another one." Xianxia busied herself with picking out the gowns again, but Mu Yanqing's attention did not return to her. Throughout the whole process, the two of them had different thoughts, each with their own thoughts. Upon reaching home, Xianxia could not be bothered to show off the wedding gown she had chosen to Jianghu. She hurried upstairs to her room and dialed the number she had hung up in a hurry earlier. As soon as the call connected, she asked anxiously, "Are you sure you have the woman's exact whereabouts?" Meng Qingxue, 19 years old, 13 weeks pregnant, currently in Yan City, Black Dragon Pool Village. Yan City? It's a very remote city, and the economy is relatively backward. We had to go through a lot of trouble to find this place. Yan City is very far from the capital. She must have thought of secretly giving birth to the child in a remote town. Xianxia muttered the name a few times in her mind and was shocked. Yan City, Yanqing. She didn't know if Meng Qingxue did it on purpose or not. Did she not give up on this man? You said that she went to the hospital for a prenatal checkup with another woman? What's that woman's identity? Well, we did check on that woman's identity, but we only know that she works at the police station. We couldn't find out anything about her relationship with Meng Qingxue. How could that be? Her information is blank. We couldn't even find her ID number. Chapter 2684. What do you think, Miss Song? Do you want to get rid of that woman? The subordinate asked subtly. Don't kill her. She furrowed her brows. Finding it tricky, she said, don't act rashly. Listen to my instructions. I'll think about how to deal with the child in her stomach. Okay, I'll wait for your instructions. She hung up the phone. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Startled, she trembled and asked, Who is it? Enya, it's me. It was Jiang Qiming's voice. Only then did she calm down. She walked to the door and opened it. Jiang Qiming entered the room, only to find that the lights were off. She immediately rebuked, Why aren't the lights on? She turned on the lights, only to see a troubled look on her daughter's face. She frowned at once. Did something happen? Mom, there's something that I don't know if I should discuss with you. Hearing this, Jiang Qiming took it seriously. She sternly helped her to the bed and sat her down. She asked seriously, I was wondering why you look like you have something on your mind. Tell me about it so that I can give you some advice. Mom, I found out that Mu Yanqing has a woman. It seems that the two of them are still entangled. When Jiang Qiming heard this, she said disapprovingly, Mu Yanqing is young and impetuous. He's a playboy and has many women around him. I've heard before that he's very playful and has had many women. Isn't that normal? Mom, this woman is different. Oh. Jiang Qiming's expression turned serious. How is she different? I have a feeling that Mu Yanqing treats this woman differently. This woman is called Meng Qingxue. Of course, she's not in the capital now. The last time I bumped into her, I used reverse psychology to chase her away. I only found out later that she's pregnant with Mu Yanqing's child. Now, this woman has run to an unknown city and seems to want to give birth to the child secretly. Mu Yanqing, on the other hand, is still relentlessly tracking down her whereabouts. I don't know if it will affect my position if he finds this woman. There's such a thing. Jiang Qiming asked, How long has she been pregnant with the child? 13 weeks. So big already. It's been almost 4 months. Mom, if we wait for this woman to give birth to the child, what will happen? I feel that Mu Yanqing's feelings for her aren't ordinary. I know that he has many women around him, but I don't know their names. She's the only one he can't forget. I keep feeling that she's a huge threat to me. We can't afford any mistakes in this matter. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. I've personally sent someone to check on her, and I've got a hold of her whereabouts. Song Enya vowed. Have you grasped her whereabouts? Yes. Jiang Qiming asked nervously. Then, what about Mu Yanqing? Isn't he also looking for Meng Qingxue? Chapter 2685. After all, the subordinates of the Muse aren't very obedient to their new boss, so their efficiency won't be high. What do you plan to do, then? Jiang Qiming asked. Song Enya shook her head with a troubled look on her face. She gritted her teeth fiercely, not knowing what to do. I want to get rid of that child. Without the child, I don't think she'll be able to stir up any big waves. I've also thought about it. It shouldn't be difficult for Meng Qingxue to get rid of the child in her womb alone. I suspect that she'll keep the child to prevent miscarriage. When she secretly gives birth to it and grows up, she'll be like that vixen, Xianxia. She'll think that a mother's status will rise because of her child. When that time comes, she'll bring the child back to the capital. The Muse value their bloodline, so how can they not acknowledge it? Although they can't give her any status, it'll be troublesome even if she just enters the Muse as a concubine. We'll see each other all the time. Do I have to fight with such a woman for a husband and scheme against her every day after becoming the young mistress of the Muse? This. Jiang Qiming was also a little troubled. Song Enya suddenly asked, Mom, why don't you and Dad come up with a plan to kick up a fuss at the Muse? Seeing that my marriage with Mu Yanqing is imminent, we can report this matter to his second uncle. He'll surely be able to make a decision for me, right? We'll have a chance before the child is born. The Muse value their reputation. At most, we'll go to the media. Once it's exposed, the Muse won't sit idly by. We can't do that. Jiang Qiming rejected the suggestion. Why? Song Enya was puzzled. Won't you be offending the Muse if you do that? Mu Linfeng isn't a pushover. If you anger him, even the Song family won't be able to bear the consequences. Why? Does the Song family deserve to be bullied by the Muse? The Songs aren't that easy to bully. I'm his fiancé, but where did that vixen, Meng Qingxue, come from? She's pregnant with his child. Shouldn't he give me an explanation? I'm not even married into the family yet I'm already being bullied like this. It's really unfair. Song Enya said righteously. Jiang Qiming immediately comforted her. Silly girl, you can't say that. Mu Yanqing had accepted this marriage passively in the first place. Think about it. He didn't even touch you, but you gave birth to a child. The entire Mu family doesn't approve of this marriage. If it weren't for the child in your belly, and the fact that the Mu family is in deep trouble at this time, and the marriage with the Song family can also support the Mu family with many resources. Otherwise, the Mu family would never agree to this marriage. If Mu Yaja were to encounter such a situation, he would definitely force her to abort the child in her womb without a word. He would never allow you to use such means to force him, but Mu Yanqing had just taken office and would not amount to much. He was soft-hearted and could not deny this child. Still, the Muse have a lot of complaints about this marriage. If you continue to bully them, they'll be even more dissatisfied with you. Jiang Qiming's analysis was clear and logical. It was obvious that she had a deep understanding of the relationship between the Muse and the Songs. Chapter 2686. Why don't we secretly control that woman and force her to abort the child? Without the child, she won't be able to stir up any trouble. Song Enya suggested again. What's that woman's background? I've done a background check. She's just an ordinary commoner whose family members are migrant workers in the capital. She, on the other hand, is also a young model. With such a background, she won't be able to enter the Mu family even if she spends her whole life trying. Song Enya was very smug when she said this. Relying on the Song family's prestige, she felt that she was a notch above Meng Qingxue. We must make a decision on this matter as soon as possible. It won't be good for you if we delay, said Jiang Qiming. Song Enya nodded solemnly. It's best if we can get rid of the child without anyone knowing. After making up their minds, the mother-daughter pair began to plan. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. At the same time, Mu Yanqing received the news. Chairman Mu, I've found Miss Qingxue's whereabouts. A man's incomparably solemn voice came from the other end. Mu Yanqing got up from the sofa in excitement and walked to the window. He was actually a little agitated by this exciting news. Have you found her? Where is she now? She's in Yen City now. We only found her traces through the internet. Miss Qingxue went to the Women and Children's Health Hospital in Yen County a few days ago for a prenatal checkup. We're still looking for her exact location, but we've already determined the general area. If there's no accident, she should be in Yen City's Black Dragon Pool Village. Yen City. Mu Yanqing's heart skipped a beat. The city's name was actually a homophone to his. That woman. Yes. Yen City is a very backward city, so we don't know how she got there. Perhaps to avoid being tracked down, she took many bus trips before finally settling down in Yen City. To hide her tracks, she deliberately avoided planes and trains, which require identification and real name registration. Instead, she took a bus the entire time. D****. Mu Yanqing gripped his phone tightly. To think that he could not find her whereabouts even after searching for different flights and trains. It turned out that in order to hide from him, this woman had chosen to use a car and a bus as a decoy. What was she trying to do? There should be a limit to her willfulness. She left without saying a word, leaving him baffled. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He could not wait to catch that lovable and detestable woman and teach her a lesson. Give me a precise location as soon as possible. Once you have her whereabouts, report to me immediately. Yes, Chairman Mu. Hold on. Mu Yanqing suddenly asked, how's the child in her stomach? I checked her medical records and found that she almost had a miscarriage some time ago. However, the recent prenatal examination report showed that the fetus's indicators were normal. Mu Yanqing's heart skipped a beat. Almost 2. What exactly did she go through? Why did she run away from him at all costs? Chapter 2687. Find her. Do whatever it takes to find her and bring her back. But there's one thing I want you to remember. As for the child in her womb, he had to be careful and bring her back unscathed. If anything happens to the child or her, I'll hold you responsible. Yes, sir. However, the person on the other end of the line was a little hesitant. Chairman Mu. His subordinate probed. What should we do if that woman refuses to come back with us? In that case, keep an eye on her. I'll go pick her up myself. Yes, Chairman Mu. We understand what you mean. The subordinate hung up the phone with trepidation. Mu Yanqing threw the phone on the table as his expression darkened. That woman would eventually return to his side. The Song family was also nervously coming up with countermeasures. That night, Jiang Qiming mentioned this matter to Song Zhenghua. She had intended to discuss this matter with him and see what countermeasures he could come up with, so she did not expect him to take it to heart. However, when Song Zhenghua heard this, he was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He sat up in bed in shock and asked incredulously, "What? Mu Yanqing has a mistress outside? And she's pregnant with his child?" When I first heard this, I also found it unbelievable. But Enya said that she had already sent someone to investigate this matter. It's absolutely true. There's no way it's a mistake. Jiang Qiming hurriedly said, feeling a little agitated. Song Zhenghua clenched his fists in anger, feeling that Mu Yanqing was simply unreasonable. That Mu Yanqing is too much of a bully. What does he mean by this? Don't tell me you want my daughter to live like a widow for him. Isn't this a little too harsh? Jiang Qiming grumbled. Harsh? How is it harsh? Think about it. Enya hasn't married into the family yet, and Mu Yanqing already wants to take in a mistress outside. Even if the Mu family has such a rule, it's a secret rule that can't be brought out in public. No matter what, Enya hasn't married into the family yet, and he's already gotten another woman pregnant. He didn't even take care of it in time and is determined to embarrass the Song family. Compared to Song Enya's feelings, Song Zhenghua cared more about the Song family's reputation. Jiang Qiming had mixed feelings when she heard that. Zhenghua, how do you think we should handle this matter? Enya said that she wanted to reason with the Mu family and get Mu Linfeng to be the judge, but I said that she was too impulsive. If she angered that old fox, her days in the Mu family would only be more difficult. What are you afraid of? Mu Yanqing, that rascal, is still hoping for more support from the Song family. Song Zhenghua paused for a moment before continuing. He's just been promoted, and his foundation isn't stable yet. How can he take advantage of the situation? Given his character, he would never admit it even if Song Enya was pregnant with his child. It was only because they coveted the Song family's prestige and background that they reluctantly compromised. When this marriage is completed, the Song family will also give him the support he deserves. But at this critical juncture, he made such a mess for me. It's not the Song family who is making trouble for no reason. Jiang Qiming pursed her lips and wanted to say something, but she didn't say anything in the end. Chapter 2688. Song Zhenghua replied with an which meant that he agreed with her suggestion. The next day, Song Zhenghua invited Old Master Song and Song Enya's uncle, Song Jianjun, over for a grand family meeting. Old Master Song had a pair of sons. One of them was called Song Jianjun. As his name implied, he was born on Army Day, so he was named Jianjun. Song Jianjun was the head of the capital's military and held a high position. Song Yunxi used to serve in the army under his guidance. Unfortunately, Song Yunxi did not live up to expectations, causing this uncle to feel sorry for her for a long time. This was considered a long-awaited family meeting. Old Master Song was getting on in years. Although his body was still strong, his mental strength could no longer keep up with his age. Jiang Qiming served him well by the side. Old Master Song's face glowed the entire time. It was obvious that he was in high spirits. Enya, Grandpa has been waiting for you to get married. Old Master Song clearly did not know the origin of this series of events. He only knew that his precious granddaughter was finally getting married, so naturally, he was overjoyed. If he were to know how Song Enya's child came about, he would be driven to his grave. For a moment, Jiang Qiming and Song Zhenghua looked at each other. They did not know how to bring up the thorny matter of Mu Yanqing and Meng Qingxue. Song Jianjun vaguely sensed that something was amiss and sized them up. Having been in power for so many years, he was already well trained. With just a glance, he could tell what the other party was thinking. Hence he suddenly said, "Zhenghua, Dad hasn't been feeling well recently. Why don't you ask Qiming to help him upstairs to rest for a while? We can continue discussing matters." Okay. As brothers, they had a tacit understanding of each other. Song Zhenghua immediately understood his meaning and gave Jiang Qiming a look at the same time. Jiang Qiming immediately stood up and coaxed old Master Song before helping him upstairs. Song Jianjun then asked, "Zhenghua, what happened? You look like you want to say something but are hesitating. It's a rare happy occasion, yet you seem to have a lot of concerns. Is it because Dad is present that you can't say anything?" "Yes." Song Zhenghua nodded solemnly. Following that, he revealed everything that had been troubling him. However, he chose not to reveal his niece's scandal and instead, chose to keep it a secret. After all, no matter how close their relationship was, they still had to care about face. When Song Jianjun heard this, he immediately frowned. "This matter is indeed troublesome. I know a little about Mu Yanqing. He's not a bad person, but he's a little too unscrupulous when it comes to women. Since he was the one who made Enya pregnant, he should take responsibility. No matter how he used to be or how many women he had, now that he's about to get married, he should cut off all those messy relationships before he gets married." In the Song family, when Song Jianjun was born, he was trained by old Master Song from a young age. When Song Zhenghua was born, it was already a peaceful era. Therefore, in comparison, Song Jianjun inherited old Master Song's upright and plain-spoken character and orthodox way of doing things. Song Jianjun's character was absolutely indisputable. As for Song Zhenghua, it was not as if he had never taken a detour in his political career. More or less, he still relied on Song Jianjun to smooth things out. Chapter 2689. At this point, Jiang Qiming also walked down and returned to her seat. "That's right. Big brother, give us an idea. How should we handle this matter? Why don't we bring this woman back first? We'll discuss the rest later." Song Jianjun's words were immediately met with Song Enya's objection. "Uncle, that won't do." She huffed angrily. "It doesn't matter whether we bring this woman back or not, but the child in her stomach must not be kept. It's a scourge if we keep it. In my opinion, why don't we get rid of the child first? It won't be too late to deal with that woman after that." "Enya? How can you be so ruthless?" Song Jianjun seemed to be extremely surprised. How could she be so vicious at such a young age? Although the child had not been born yet, it was still a small life. Would it not be a sin to kill it just like that? He had been on the throne for so many years, and the number of lives he had taken was not small. However, the majority of them were not innocent. They had all died for a reason. However, with so many lives in his hands, retribution came as he got older. His quality of sleep was not good now. It seemed that there was indeed such a thing as retribution. Therefore, he began to pray to Buddha and began to believe in karma. Therefore, as an experienced person, he advised, "Enya, you mustn't be too ruthless. What you're doing is too harmful to your virtue. Getting rid of that child was a sin, a bad karma. You can't bear it." "Uncle, you're a Buddhist? Why is this the first time I've heard of it?" She laughed. Song Zhenghua reprimanded sternly, "Enya, don't be impudent. The Songs are very particular about rules." "Oh," Song Jianjun smiled. "Enya isn't old enough to be sensible yet. Anyway, this matter can't be rushed. Find that woman first and bring her back. Then we'll ask the Muse what they have to say. The child in her stomach is innocent and can't be touched. As for the manpower, don't worry, Zhenghua. I'll send a team, and you'll be in charge of dispatching them. However, this matter can't be publicized, understand?" "Understood. Big brother. Your kindness will always be engraved in my heart." Sigh. "We're all family, so there's no need for you to say such words. How distant would that make us seem?" Song Jianjun smiled. Thus, the matter was settled. Song Enya, however, disagreed. Before the team set off for Yen City, she placed 2 of her subordinates among them and ordered fiercely, I want that child, Meng Qingxue. Learn to be smart. If you can't do it well, don't come to see me. Yes. Understood. These two subordinates mixed into the formation and set off in a grandiose manner. She gave the two men a detailed address, which was given to her by the person in charge of collecting intelligence. She asked the two men to deal with Meng Qingxue in advance before the army arrived. After sneaking into the formation and arriving at Yen City, the two of them followed the address and snuck into Black Dragon Pond Village before the troops advanced to their destination. That night, Chu Ho had to be on duty in the afternoon. He would only get off work and go home after 10 o'clock at night. If there was an accident and he needed to go out, he might have to go home even later. Chapter 2690. Xiao Bao had long been used to Chu Ho leaving early and returning late. Originally, it was very boring for him to be alone at home. After all, Chu Ho had no identity and no household registration. He didn't even have a birth certificate, let alone be able to go to kindergarten like other children. Although the kindergarten in the village was old and shabby, it still followed the rules. A child like Xiao Bao with no background could not enter the kindergarten at all. Therefore, when Chu Ho went to work, he could only watch TV at home or play with the children in the village. However, the children in the village did not like this fair and tender little fellow. Therefore, this little fellow who had grown up in the village was very clean and too delicate, like a child from the city. He was not even willing to play with mud. Needless to say, Xiao Bao was quite a clean freak despite his young age. Children of his age were still playing with mud, but he snorted at it. Therefore, Chu Ho bought him a comic book and a small picture book. When the sun was good, Xiao Bao would move a stool outside, spread it with snow-white A4 paper, and earnestly copy the pictures in the picture book. In just a few months' time, his meticulous brushwork had actually improved to a decent level. Now that there was one more person at home, Meng Qingxue would take him outside to play when she was not at home. The scenery in Yen City was very beautiful. Meng Qingxue often thought that it would be great if this place could be developed into a tourist attraction. The terraced fields, the sea of flowers, the blue sky, and the white clouds, without the smog and pollution of the heavy industrial city, everything was indescribably beautiful. Have you seen a green lake? Have you ever seen a stream so clear that you could see the bottom? It could be seen everywhere. Meng Qingxue also liked to draw when she was young, so occasionally, she would take Xiao Bao to the wild to sketch. Most of the time, she would lie in the field with him and look up at the sky. Auntie Qingxue, do you think the name Mom gave me, Xiao Bao Chu, sounds good? A lot of people say that my name is tacky. Meng Qingxue couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Bao, you're so cute. This means that you're an amazing treasure in your mother's heart. Then, Chu Xiao Bao turned over and laid down beside her. He rested his cheeks on his hands and tilted his head curiously. Auntie Qingxue gave birth to Xiao Bao baby. What do you want to name Xiao Bao baby? I haven't decided yet. I don't even know if the baby is a boy or a girl. Chu Xiao Bao suddenly giggled. If only it were a girl. Ha! Meng Qingxue was a little surprised. Why do you say that? Mom said that if Aunt Qingxue gives birth to a girl, she'll be Xiao Bao's wife. Meng Qingxue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiao Bao, do you know what a wife means? Of course. Xiao Bao said proudly. Mom said that a wife means a girl who will be with me forever and accompany me for the rest of my life. Meng Qingxue was amused by him. Is that how your mom explained it to you? Yeah. Isn't that what it means? Actually, she's not wrong. Meng Qingxue couldn't help but pat his little head. Suddenly she asked, Then, Xiao Bao, Auntie wants to ask you a question too. Do you know what a husband means? Chapter 2691. Hey! When the boy grows up, he'll meet the girl he likes. The two of them like each other and will be together forever. After they get married, the boy will call the girl wife, and the girl will call the boy husband. They'll give birth to cute Xiao Bao babies and their lives will continue. Then, does Auntie Qingxue have a husband? Meng Qingxue was stunned and shook her head. Then Auntie Qingxue has Xiao Bao babies too. What's even stranger is that Mommy doesn't have a husband either, but Mommy has me too. Xiao Bao. Meng Qingxue suddenly asked, Do you want to find your father? Xiao Bao raised his handsome eyebrows and suddenly smiled. Of course. Xiao Bao has always wanted a father. When Xiao Bao grows up, I'll go find him. Meng Qingxue smiled, but her heart was heavy. That night, Chu Ho was on duty. After Meng Qingxue bathed Xiao Bao, the two of them lay on the bed and watched TV. Children were full of energy, but that was based on the fact that they didn't go out to play during the day. With Meng Qingxue around, Xiao Bao's energy had long been exhausted. He fell asleep at around 8 o'clock. Seeing that he had fallen asleep, Meng Qingxue also felt sleepy. Ever since she got pregnant, she had become a little sleepy. She turned off the TV, hugged Xiao Bao, and closed her eyes. That night, she didn't sleep well. She was always half asleep and couldn't sleep well. In the middle of the night, it started drizzling. The raindrops weren't heavy, but the wind was exceptionally strong. It blew against the windows, making loud sounds. Meng Qingxue was in a daze when she was awakened by the sound of the windows. She opened her eyes and saw that it was raining outside. Before she went to sleep, she forgot to lock the windows. She was worried that Xiao Bao would wake up, so she carefully got out of bed, walked to the window, and closed it. The room fell silent all of a sudden. However, in this strange silence, she vaguely heard the strange sound of the wooden floor. Meng Qingxue's heart skipped a beat. She stopped abruptly and looked down. The room was made of composite flooring. When she stepped on it, there was a strange sound. She calmed her nervous heartbeat. Why was she scaring herself in the middle of the night? Meng Qingxue let out a breath of cold air and returned to the bed. However, she suddenly heard the strange sound of the wooden floor creaking again. She suddenly widened her eyes and looked at the empty ceiling. This time, she knew very well that this strange sound did not come from the wooden floor. This time, she could clearly sense that the sound came from the corridor. The corridor was also paved with composite flooring. Every time someone went upstairs, there would be a strange creaking sound. Could it be that Chu Ho had returned? Impossible. She identified the sound and tiptoed carefully. She was so careful that she made a bigger sound. If Chu Ho had returned, he definitely wouldn't have woken them up. Chu Ho's movements were extremely light. He walked as if he was flying. It was impossible for him to make such a big sound. It definitely wasn't Chu Ho. Chapter 2692. She immediately reached out to lock the door, but in a flash, the person outside the door turned the doorknob. Following that, with an extremely brutal force, the man kicked the door open and barged into the room. Meng Qingxue was caught off guard and fell backward to the ground. In order to protect the child in her stomach, she deliberately used her hands to support herself, but she still fell hard. Ugh! Meng Qingxue frowned in pain. With a click, the lights were turned on, and the entire room was lit up. She looked up and saw two men in black with masks over their faces. As soon as they walked in, they saw her fall to the ground. They immediately reacted. They must have heard the sound of their footsteps and woke her up. This woman is quite alert. The man sneered as he took out a photo from his clothes and compared it with Meng Qingxue's appearance. You're Meng Qingxue, aren't you? Meng Qingxue gritted her teeth. She thought that these two men were sent by Mu Yanqing. Her face turned extremely gloomy and she denied it without thinking. I'm not. You're not. The man threw the photo at her. You look exactly the same, and you're still quibbling with me? Hearing their vulgar words, Meng Qingxue frowned again as her heart pounded wildly. She did not know what time it was, nor did she know when Chu Ho would be back. She was very clear in her heart that with her current pregnancy and lack of strength, she was definitely not a match for these two burly men. She could only think of ways to stall for time. Who are you? Meng Qingxue mustered up her courage to ask. The two men looked at each other and then at her again. Their gazes were vicious. You don't have to ask anything. Hand over the child obediently. Meng Qingxue was stunned. Hand over the child? She was stunned for a moment, not understanding what they meant. Here, he had made a laughable mistake. The two men left in a hurry, and Song Enya gave them instructions too hastily. She only said that she wanted a child, but she did not specify in detail whether it was the one she was pregnant with or a lively child. The two men thought that their master wanted a child of about 4 or 5 years old. Hence they did not think much of it. Furthermore, Meng Qingxue was only 3 months pregnant. Her lower abdomen was not very obvious, and she had a good figure. It was impossible to tell that she was pregnant. Naturally, they did not think too much about it. Don't play dumb. Where's the child? Hand the child over obediently and save you from suffering. Meng Qingxue bit her lower lip hard when she suddenly realized something. Her heartbeat quickened. Oh no! Chu Xiaobao. The noise of the two men startled the child sleeping soundly on the bed. Xiaobao was woken up by the argument. He opened his sleepy eyes and rubbed them with his hand. He was still sleepy. When he saw that the lights were on, he was startled and immediately closed his eyes. He called out sleepily, "Auntie Qingxue." His childish voice instantly attracted the attention of the two men. Chapter 2693. Big brother, don't tell me that the child master wants is this child? A man muttered softly. Shut up. Anyway, take the child away first. That person ordered, and his underling reached out a pair of large hands to Xiao Bao Chu. Xiao Bao Chu felt a pair of coarse hands touching him, and he opened his eyes in confusion. He heard Meng Qingshue's hoarse voice exploding in his ears. Xiao Bao, run. There are bad people. Ah! Xiao Bao Chu was instantly startled awake. He opened his eyes, and almost without any reaction, he was grabbed by the collar by the man. He was shocked and frightened, and he started to cry. Let go of me. Let go. Go. The two men exchanged a look, and they understood each other tacitly. When Meng Qingxue saw that they were going to take away Xiao Bao Chu, she was so shocked that she immediately rushed up and grabbed one of the men's clothes tightly. She was so anxious that tears fell from her eyes. Don't take him away. He's innocent. The child you want is in my stomach. In my stomach. The person you want to take away is me. Don't implicate the innocent. I'm the person you're looking for, not this child, and I have nothing to do with this child. I beg you, don't hurt him, okay? Get lost. That man pushed her away, carried the crying child, and hurried down the stairs. Meng Qingxue chased after him without a care. Hearing Xiao Bao's continuous crying, her mind went blank. She didn't even care about the child in her stomach, and she chased after the two men, crying and shouting, The child you're looking for is in my stomach. Not this child. You've got it wrong. You've got it wrong. She didn't hesitate to sacrifice herself and made the worst decision. Even if she was taken away by this group of people and forced to abort the child, she couldn't implicate the innocent child. However, no one believed what she said. They only thought that she was playing hard to get. The two men kicked open the door. A van with a fake license plate was parked outside. They opened the door and were about to shove Xiao Bao Chu in when Meng Qingxue rushed up in a panic. She threw herself beside one of the men, and reached out to snatch the child. Xiao Bao Chu immediately reached out to grab her hand. The man beside her reacted quickly, and grabbed Meng Qingshue's wrist tightly. I told you to get lost. Didn't you hear me? As he said that, he kicked Meng Qingxue to the ground. With a kick to her knee, Meng Qingxue let out a muffled groan, staggered, and fell to the ground. At this moment, the drizzle was the rain of the rain. The road suddenly became muddy, and Meng Qingxue fell to the ground, covered in mud. Xiao Bao Chu saw that Meng Qingxue was in such a miserable state, so how could he let it go? The little guy's heart burned with anger. He opened his mouth and bit the shoulder of the man who was holding him. Ah! The man screamed and cursed fiercely. Mother Fasterus cur! You little bastard! As soon as he finished speaking, a slap was thrown. Xiao Bao Chu was slapped hard in the face. His body tilted, and he fell backward. His head hit the window post hard, and his vision turned black. He actually fainted. Seeing that the child had fainted, the man finally smiled in satisfaction. This way, it finally stopped. That's good. Chapter 2694. Don't hurt him. Please, this child is innocent. His name is Xiao Bao. He's not the child you're looking for. The person you're looking for is me, isn't it? Meng Qingxue pleaded bitterly. However, no one paid any attention to her. The two men closed the door and locked it before getting into the car. One of them sat in the driver's seat while the other sat in the passenger's seat and started the car. Meng Qingxue saw the car slowly start and drive away. She immediately struggled to get up and limped after it. Xiao Bao! Xiao Bao! She cried at the top of her lungs, but the car still sped away mercilessly. Xiao Bao! She kept chasing after it, but the despair in her heart was expanding infinitely. It was only when the car was far away that Meng Qingxue, panting heavily, staggered a few steps after it, but in the end, her physical strength was exhausted. Her vision blurred, and soon, she fell into a whirlpool of darkness and fainted in the rain. Not far away, the sound of car horns could be heard. It seemed that a large number of cars were driving toward this place. Rows of Nissan cars drove in the direction of the village. Nissan cars. These were all military vehicles. The first car was an Audi A8 with its high-beam headlights on. The driver saw a woman lying on the ground not far away. She was covered in mud and immediately reported, "Chairman Mu, there seems to be a woman lying on the ground in front." "Stop the car." "Yes." The car quickly stopped. The row of cars behind them also braked and stopped. The driver got out of the car and opened the back seat door. Mu Yanqing got out and someone immediately held an umbrella for him. He did not intend to come tonight. However, he was still worried that this silly woman would insist on going her own way and not return. Hence he came personally. Even if she refused to go with him, he would coax her back and trick her back. Mu Yanqing got out of the car. Under the high-beam headlights, he saw a woman lying on the ground. However, just looking at the woman's back made his eyes tremble. He quickly walked up to her and carried her in his arms. Just as he turned this person's face over, Meng Qingshue's pale and muddy face came into view. "Qingxue." Mu Yanqing sized her up again, only to see her in her pajamas. She was covered in muddy water from head to toe. What was more alarming was that she was so cold that it made one flustered. "Qingxue, Qingxue." What was going on? Why did she faint here for no reason? Didn't she say that she was carefully nurturing the fetus in this unknown village? How did he end up in such a sorry state? "Qingxue." "Qingxue." Mu Yanqing could not afford to wait any longer. He immediately pulled Meng Qingxue into his arms and hurriedly got into the car while calling her name anxiously. "Go to the hospital. Go to the hospital." Mu Yanqing's face never betrayed his panic before. He hugged Meng Qingxue tightly in his arms and caressed her face with heartache. His heart was beating wildly. "Qingxue, don't scare me, okay? I'm late, it's my fault, it's my fault. Don't scare me." He had never realized that he was so afraid of losing a person. His assistant at the side cautiously comforted him. "Chairman Mu, don't be nervous. We'll send Miss Qingxue to the hospital immediately." Mu Yanqing did not have the time to care about her. He hugged Meng Qingxue tightly and trembled in fear. Chapter 2695. The car sped along at a high speed. The rain gradually became heavier, and bean-sized raindrops pitter-pattered against the car window. Mu Yanqing hugged Meng Qingxue tightly in his arms. At this moment, the person in his arms was already drenched in cold sweat. "It hurts," a faint moan sounded. Mu Yanqing looked down in shock, only to see Meng Qingxue squinting her eyes. The flashing lights outside the window flashed across her face, and he could vaguely see the fine beads of cold sweat on her forehead. "Where does it hurt?" Mu Yanqing's expression suddenly became nervous. "It hurts, it hurts." Meng Qingxue regained her consciousness in the darkness and felt a sharp pain in her lower abdomen. She could not help but touch her lower abdomen. The waves of pain almost exhausted all her willpower. Her back was as stiff as a rock, and her body was so tense that she could not move. Someone seemed to be calling her name by her ear. It was a familiar voice, but she did not want to hear it again. "Qingxue." She widened her eyes a little, and her vision gradually became clearer. Mu Yanqing's nervous and anxious face came into view. "Qingxue, how are you feeling? You said you're in pain. Where does it hurt?" Meng Qingxue, who was in a daze, did not realize who the man in front of her was. She only held her abdomen in pain. "My child." Meng Qingxue was still in a daze, but subconsciously, she was still thinking about the flesh and blood in her abdomen. "It hurts." Mu Yanqing's heart ached so much that he hugged her tightly, but he could only watch as she curled up in his arms, trembling all over. "Qingxue, don't be afraid. With me here, the child will be saved. Qingxue, hang in there. We'll be at the hospital soon." Mu Yanqing caressed her pale face with heartache. "Not only will your child be saved, but we'll also have a second child, a third child." "Qingxue." Meng Qingxue was in so much pain that she clutched his collar tightly, panting heavily. Mu Yanqing could not help but feel a little anxious. He questioned coldly, "When will we reach the hospital?" The chauffeur hurriedly changed the direction and reported, "Chairman Mu, don't worry. The GPS shows that we're 1 kilometer away." Mu Yanqing gritted his teeth and lowered his head to look at Meng Qingxue, who was as stiff as a rock, in annoyance. The car quickly drove into the hospital. The medical staff rushed over immediately. Mu Yanqing carried Meng Qingxue out of the car. When the doctors saw this, they hurried over to help, but he subconsciously resisted them from touching her and immediately glared at them. "Get lost." This man was so hot-tempered. She then looked at the woman in his arms. Her face was pale and covered in cold sweat. She was probably a little irritable because she was overly worried. The doctors couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. However, when they looked at the license plate of the Audi A8 again, the group of people caught a glimpse of rows of Nissan cars with military license plates quickly driving into the hospital. When they looked at the license plate, it was a special license plate of Beijing XXXXX. They knew that the tall men who came out of the car were all dignitaries from Beijing. Oh my God! This is Yen City, such a small city. How did it attract the attention of these dignitaries from the capital? They immediately understood that no matter how impolite this handsome man was, they could not show their impatience on their faces. Otherwise, they would definitely get into trouble if they angered these bigwigs who were not to be trifled with. Chapter 2696. Mu Yanqing personally carried Meng Qingxue to the gurney and looked up anxiously. "Doctor, what are you waiting for? She's screaming in pain. Didn't you hear her? Hurry up and see what's going on." Only after he gave the order did the doctors gather around. "Where is the patient injured?" When I arrived, she had already fallen to the ground. "And," Mu Yanqing continued in a low voice, "she's pregnant." "Are you her family member?" asked the doctor. Mu Yanqing blurted out without thinking, "I'm her man." "Sir, please calm down first. Don't be nervous. We'll send her to the emergency room immediately." With that, the doctor hurriedly pushed the gurney and rushed to the emergency room. Mu Yanqing chased after a few steps, but suddenly realized something. He stopped in his tracks and looked down, only to see a trace of red blood on his right sleeve. "Chairman Mu, you..." Seeing him stop, the assistant behind him walked up to him, only to see the shock in his eyes. Following his line of sight, he also saw a smear of red on his sleeve. Mu Yanqing's hand suddenly trembled. How did this happen? He clenched his trembling right hand so tightly that the veins on his wrist popped out. Late at night. The sky in the capital was also gloomy. Xianxia stood by the window. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. Suddenly, the phone rang. Jiang Qiming, who was anxiously waiting on the sofa, jumped up and rushed to the landline to pick up the receiver. "Hello, Madam Song." A nervous voice came from the other end. Jiang Qiming tried her best to suppress her nervousness and pretended to be calm. "Speak." "Madam Song, I'm sorry. It's our fault for not being able to bring that woman back." "What do you mean?" Before Jiang Qiming could ask further, Song Zhenghua rushed over, snatched the receiver, and questioned coldly, "What's the situation?" "Mr. Song, I'm really sorry. By the time we arrived, the Mu family had already arrived." "What?" Song Zhenghua was stunned. "When we arrived, we saw a row of cars driving out of the village. We looked at the license plates and found that they were all transferred from Jianghu in the capital. We guessed that the Mu family had sent people to take Meng Qingxue away before we did." Song Zhenghua gritted his teeth in anger. "Trash." Bang. He hung up the phone fiercely and fell heavily on the sofa, looking extremely irritated. Jiang Qiming immediately asked, "Zhenghua, what's going on? Didn't you bring him back successfully?" "No. This bunch of trash, they were one step too late. The Mu family had already snatched her away." "What?" Jiang Qiming furrowed her brows anxiously. "Are you sure? Are they from the Mu family? The car's license plate is from Jianghu. Other than Big Brother, only Mu Linfeng has the ability to transfer people from Jianghu in the capital." Jiang Qiming was vexed. "Aya, what should we do now?" Song Zhenghua flared up. "What can I do? Can you stop nagging beside my ear? My head is going to hurt from your nagging." Chapter 2697. Time felt so long that it felt like time had frozen. Just as she was in a corner, Her phone suddenly rang. Almost instinctively, she answered the call and brought it to her ear. "How is it?" "Miss Song, we've brought him here." "Where are you?" "We're on the highway, but due to the long journey, we'll probably reach the capital tomorrow morning." Although the distance between Yen City and the capital was far, it only took a little more than 7 hours via the highway. She immediately said, "I'll send you the address right away. I'll wait for you there tomorrow morning." "Okay." After hanging up the call, she immediately sent an address over. Alas, she did not know that her instructions were not clear enough. The person brought back by the 2 men she sent out was not the one she wanted. In the car, Xiao Bao slowly woke up. He opened his eyes and gradually regained his clarity, only to see a pitch-black car. Next to him was a car window, through which he saw a flash of darkness. On the highway, the car sped along, its engine roaring. Xiao Bao frowned. The back of his head had been hit, and it was dazzling. He shook his head and tried to move, but he realized that his hands were cuffed behind his back. His mouth was also taped, so he could not make any sound. He was shocked and scared. Isolated and helpless, he did not know where this car was taking him. Are they human traffickers? The village was often visited by human traffickers. At first, he did not know the identity of these strangers who came in and out of the village, but he saw that they were all carrying very small babies in their arms. Some were 1 year old, some were 2 or 3 years old, and they were all crying. According to the children in the village, these were human traffickers who abducted children from the big cities and sold them to remote villages at high prices. Most of them changed hands for 20 to 30,000 yuan. A child from a village in Black Dragon Pool Village was bought from these people for 20,000 yuan. At a young age, he already knew the term, human traffickers. Could it be that he had also been abducted? Was he going to be abducted to the ravine and sold? Chu Xiaobao was trembling in fear. Perhaps it was because he was extremely frightened that he forgot to cry for a moment. He stared at the 2 men in the driver's seat and the passenger's seat. His mother had once warned him that if he met bad people, especially criminals, he must not cry loudly when there were no outsiders. Otherwise, he would definitely be treated crudely. When there was an opportunity, such as in a busy city or on the streets, he would ask for help immediately. Chu Xiaobao was a smart child, and a rational child. Although he usually looked innocent and pure, he was able to calm down in this kind of situation. He knew that crying and throwing a tantrum was useless. He would not be saved just because he cried and threw a tantrum. Instead, he would suffer a lot. Chu Xiaobao leaned back in his seat, but his breathing became heavier and heavier. The man in the co-pilot seat turned around and saw that he was awake but didn't cry. For a moment, he was surprised. If it were any other child of this age, they would have been scared to the point of crying and screaming. However, this child did not even make a sound other than crying pitifully. It was really strange. This child actually doesn't know how to cry. Chapter 2698. "Mom!" he mumbled fearfully with tears in his eyes. However, Chu Xiaobao would never have expected that this accident would become a turning point in his life. In retrospect, he would be grateful to the 2 men who had taken him away. Of course, this was all in the future. The night deepened. At the police station, a police car was parked at the entrance. The car door opened and Chu Ho got out of the car with a man in handcuffs. He pushed him. "Behave yourself." The man seemed to be unconvinced. He was shirtless and had tattoos all over his left and right arms. His hair was dyed in various colors and he looked like a bandit. He cursed, "F***ck, you be ***tc." His breath reeked of alcohol. Chu-He frowned and waved her hand to disperse the strong smell of alcohol. She then kicked him in the back again. The man was caught off guard and fell to the ground with a face full of mud. "Watch your mouth." The man gritted his teeth and scolded. "What? So what if I call you AB***tch? So what?" Chu-Ho sneered and walked over. He grabbed the man's hair and slapped him 3 times. Slap, slap, slap. The man was stunned. He was in so much pain that he gritted his teeth. "What are you doing?" Chu-Ho asked. "Didn't you ask me what I was doing? Is this okay?" "You be ***tc." The man pretended to scold him again. Chu-Ho raised his hand again. The man was instantly terrified and kept quiet. This woman had quite a bit of strength. Those 3 slaps just now had made his head go numb. What a ruthless person. Know your place and don't suffer so much, understand? The moment he mentioned him, she dragged him into the police station. When he reached the door, the police officer on duty looked up and asked, "Little Chu, you're still out in the middle of the night?" "Yeah." Someone reported that a group was gambling. When I rushed over, a few of them slipped away and I only caught this one. We didn't have enough manpower. Thank you for your hard work. Chu Ho raised his hand as a greeting. He escorted her into the police station and locked her in the interrogation room. Just as he was about to record her statement, the police officer on duty with her walked over with her phone in his hand. She usually didn't bring her phone with her when she was on a mission because she was worried that she would be distracted or accidentally drop her phone at the scene. Previously, a colleague received a report that someone was taking drugs in a KTV. When he was on duty, he accidentally left his phone at the scene. It was picked up by another criminal suspect who had not been arrested. Coincidentally, the phone was unlocked. After that, he looked for an opportunity to take revenge and kidnap the colleague's wife. Fortunately, the danger was averted. Little Chu, something seems to have happened to your family. Chu Ho paused in the middle of preparing the documents. He raised his head and frowned. What happened? It's your neighbor who called. He said that something seems to have happened to your house. You should quickly ask for leave and go back to take a look. Chu Ho took the phone and looked at it. It was her neighbor Song Chowan. She frowned. Her colleague seemed to understand her concerns and patted her shoulder gently. Since something has happened to your house, you should quickly go back and take a look. If anything happens here, I'll take care of it for you.